right, it's another Tuesday. That means it's time for the big three. So hopefully everybody's doing well. As you can see, we got a new addition to the show. We have Jake, who's joining myself and Dylan. Jordan won't be here this week, but he'll definitely be back next week.
Got an
But
interview. I think
yeah,
we should put like he has an interview with a football player. So is it football or basketball?
football. Yeah,
That's what I thought.
yeah,
I thought
definitely.
this one was the football one. And
Yeah,
yeah, he has an
that,
interview with a football
it.
player. So he's definitely being missed doing something good though. So
Right. So while he's off doing his thing, we're here to give you another great edition of the Big Three. Oh, what's up, Coach? He's already in the chat. Appreciate that. But like I said, got a new addition, Jake. Welcome to the show. Kind of let
Thank
people a
you.
little
Thank
bit
you.
about yourself.
Sure.
Introduce yourself
Yeah.
to the
You get
audience.
you got it. I won't take too much time. My name's Jake. I have a podcast of my own. I've been doing for a couple years. It's called the Unbiased Fan Podcast, so you can look that up. Same with my Twitter bio, just at Unbiased Fan, all one word. I cover basketball, football mostly. Lifelong Saints fan, Utah Jazz fan. Just and overall, just a huge football fan. Really excited for this podcast and this opportunity to join you guys.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. Well, Dylan, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. We had a very interesting divisional round, a good set of games. Keeping up with basketball and college basketball lately, and then had a big UFC card, so that was very interesting. It was a very good card in my opinion. So just keeping up with the daily sports grind. You know how it is.
Yeah,
Wait until NBA deadline for something to happen, but
yeah.
all quiet right now outside of Rui Hachimura.
Yeah, that's not going to be groundbreaking news, though. I like Rui, but come on,
Yeah, I like Rui as well,
come,
but it's
come
like
on.
you got 3 seconds and Kendrick none. No one's really raving about that.
Right. Yeah. And,
Yeah,
and it's funny, with the Lakers going from the talks of Buddy Hield, Miles Turner, or whoever. Now, hopefully, Rui isn't the only move they make, but if it is, I mean, Laker fans might be a little bit discouraged by that. But kind of represents the limit in assets that they do have. That Hachimura is kind of the type of player that they probably are targeting, and he came into the league with a little bit of promise. Hasn't really shown it yet, so hopefully he realizes something in LA, or they give him, I don't know, whatever opportunity he may not have gotten in Washington. I mean, I don't know, but if that's the first move that sets off everything, then I'm ready for it.
it's needed. And I'll just say, I live in the DMV, so
Mm-hmm.
Washington's my local sports team, and no one cares about Washington,
Yeah,
and nothing good comes out of Washington. So hopefully, Rui can have something moving forward with AD when he's healthy, with LeBron, something could come forward. They gave up next to nothing for
mm-hmm.
him, so it's not a loss at all for the Lakers, but they need something more.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, are there any rumblings in Washington about them moving anybody else?
Not that I've heard. I mean,
Okay.
there's a couple pieces. Shoot, the name just left me. The small forward they had that used to be on the Lakers,
Kuzma.
uh, Kuzma.
Yeah.
Kyle Kuzma is going to be. I think he's going to be a hot commodity because his contract is really good. The problem is, I think he's a free agent this upcoming off season. So wherever he goes, it's just going to be a rental.
Right.
But I mean, he's like 13 million, plays good D, can play some big games. He's a champion. Like
Yeah.
contending teams on the fringe would want that. But that's all I'm hearing for Washington.
Yeah, the Kuzma news was interesting. I've heard two conflicting sides, like Kuzma's interested in a trade, but I've also heard stuff like today Kuzma's interested in staying there long term, and it looks like Washington also wants that as well too. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting what Washington does do with him because if they're going to trade him. They probably should do it soon. But
Yeah,
if they
got to
want
do
to
it
sign
now.
him, they want to
Yeah.
sign him. Like you also better should do that now. I think they should trade him personally. I don't think Washington's really going anywhere. If you can get some good
No.
pieces to build around Beal and Porzingis, if that's what you want to do to go to a finals, I mean, I don't think Kuzma's going to be that piece that gets you there. So why not trade him?
Hey, what's going on, Freddie? Where we actually talked about your Lakers for a little bit. Wasn't even scripted that way, but it just happened. But yeah, so I think the trade deadline, there are a lot of interesting teams because teams like Washington, Chicago, your Charlottes, even like a Miami or something, those teams that are kind of on the fringe, just in the East. I mean, West, you have I don't know. Could Oklahoma City do
Atlanta.
something? Well, yeah, Atlanta for sure. Oh, Freddie coming in. Lakers made a move, yeah. And as Jake said, nobody in Washington's really worried about that.
No,
But hey,
no.
you celebrate
But-
it.
Have fun getting 13 points a game. That's all he averages.
Look out for Utah on the trade deadline. That's all I'm going to say. Danny Ainge
Yes,
is going to be working his magic. You got Clarkson, who declined his extension. I hope Utah doesn't trade Clarkson. I freaking love that dude. Him and Conley are both very valuable pieces, so I expect those guys to at least be in the move.
I think Utah came out and said that they plan on keeping Markkanen and Kessler. Those are their two untouchables, but everybody else is kind of like free game.
they're not touching those two guys.
Yeah.
Those guys are studs. Those guys are awesome.
Yeah, it seems like Malik Beasley, Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, those type of guys.
So Freddie's making his case for Hachimura.
He played defense, knocked down a three.
Plays defense, he knocks down
He
a
is.
three. He's a solid rotation. Yeah, I mean,
Man, isn't he shooting like 25% from three this season though?
Well,
I mean, that's
he
fair.
and
When you
Kendrick
look at it that way, like on paper right now, it's just Kendrick Nunn for Rui Hachimura. Those 3 seconds you don't know will hit. You don't know what they'll be yet. You don't know even if they'll get traded. And on paper right now, you'd probably have Rui Hachimura over Kendrick Nunn if it was just player for player. So, I mean, I guess right now the Lakers are going to look like they made out with it and they're going to be better in the short term. But in the long term, who knows? Because I have a group of friends that are some Lakers. I'm talking about this season. I thought I checked his stats the other day and he was shooting 25% from three.
I think it's like 33. But as Freddie says,
was it 30? It was 30. I thought it was 2.5 or 3.5.
Yeah, I think him and Nunn are shooting about the same from three this year. But as Freddie said, he's like 40% on catch and shoot. I mean, if he gets back to that number, then yeah, it will definitely work out for him because the Lakers, that's their one need, perimeter shooting.
Yep.
So if he gets back to that, then this move will look really good. If he struggles or struggles to stay on the court, because he's been in the league 4 years, I think the most games he's played is like 57. So availability's been an issue with him, and like a lot of the players on the Lakers, that's also part of their struggles as well. Let's see, he's another athletic body. True, when he's on the court. But yeah, like you said, Jake, about Utah, I think Utah's going to be an interesting team to watch because we already know Danny Ainge loves to pull the trigger on moves. Yep. And I do think it's smart of them to – I think Markkanen, he was kind of a bust in Chicago, but it definitely seems like Utah's the spot for him. They brought that coach over from the Celtics staff.
Will Hardy is like a revelation. He's so good. He's just unlocking everything there, giving him the confidence. Kessler is like a mini Rudy Gobert, but not – you can't harass him as much with small ball. And to get those two guys off those trades and all those picks is classic Danny Ainge. So and they might keep everybody too. It's just there's going to be this huge unknown with Utah and all these dominoes are going to fall. And that's the excitement for the trade deadline is what's going to be the first big domino. No offense to Rui, he's not the big domino, right? That's not going to move the needle a ton. What's going to be that first domino that's just going to set everything else ablaze? Because there's really how many elite teams in the NBA are there right now that you're really confident are title contenders? There's like 3, yeah. And they're all in the East, and they're all in the East. Like, how much do you really trust Denver with their health? I kind of need to see what they do in the playoffs. Like, the West is wide open. There's going to be I think there's going to be a ton of trade movement for just trying to get those little pieces. Bogdanovich for Detroit. There's no way Detroit's keeping him. You could get a first-round pick, some sort of protection on there for a guy that can shoot the three like he does. Like, movements are going to be happening. Yep, exactly. Eric Gordon, that's a great one.
His name pops up every year, so yeah, Eric Gordon for sure. Even the Bogdanovich in Atlanta.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like Atlanta probably is going to start making some more moves. I mean, we already know about Collins being out there.
Better move Collins. I'm a Hawks fan, so they better move Collins.
Collins has been in trade rumors for like 4 years.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this year, hopefully they finally pull the trigger on because it has to weigh on Collins as well. Like every year, no matter what, his name automatically pops up.
Yep.
I feel like amongst the fan base, I think the fan base is kind of ready for him to go at this point.
He's probably ready to go too. He wants
Yeah.
to be. As a player, you have to be wanting to be accepted and not just have these people just chatting about what you could get in return. That would be a drain for 1 year, let alone, gosh, how long has he been in the league? Because it feels like since his rookie year, he's been in trade rumors.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
It's
much.
probably 2017, 2018, it feels like.
Yep, that's a long time.
Yeah.
But with that being said, my problem with John Collins is like he has such this big contract. What do you even get for him? Like, because it's not like the Hawks are going to take anything like too light. It's not like they're going to take some salary dumps and just call it good. Like, this is a team with title aspirations. They want to contend, hence the DeJounte Murray move. So it's like, what do you get for a contract as big as Collins? Can you get a player that's good enough to get back as big as Collins? Maybe, but who are you willing to get? I mean, one player I'll always keep saying is give me Mikal Bridges. Give me Mikal Bridges from the Suns. You know, I feel like that's an interesting trade for both teams. But, you know, again, that's someone who's not really doing too well in his role in Phoenix like he was used to. Maybe a change of scenery might help. He's another good defensive wing that can help, you know, when Trae Young's on the court. Well, so who knows? But I don't know. That John Collins situation is very interesting being a Hawks fan because it's like, what do you even get for him?
Sure. What's his contract? How big is it, roughly?
He got a max. So whatever the max is, he got a max.
So probably like the
like 25.
at least
I think it's 25
range.
a year.
Okay, that's a big contract.
Yeah. So that means you probably got to take on another team's big contract guy who probably hasn't lived up to it as well. And whether or not they then come to Atlanta and perform better or not, that's the risk they're going to have to take. Now, I also think Atlanta,
he's on a 5 for 125, so he's getting 25 a year.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, depending on how many years are left on that, which I guess is probably like
it's a brand spanking new contract. Okay. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's the issue that they're going to have with that one. But you know, also with Atlanta, I think, like you said, Dylan, they do have aspirations of being like a title contender. I just don't know if they're actually that in the way that the East looks right now, and the way that their team is. You know, yes, they made that run to the Eastern Conference Finals a couple of years ago, but that was kind of a special year. A lot of things fell their way to get them there. And looking past those years, like the Celtics have solidified themselves. Milwaukee's not going anywhere, although they're struggling right now, but they just got Giannis and Middleton back, I think, last night. So Middleton's going to be the key for them if they could keep him on the floor. Philly, they've went on a run lately. Brooklyn, Cleveland, because of Donovan Mitchell, I feel like they've moved ahead of Atlanta. So, I mean, Atlanta at best is probably like 5th or 6th in the East. And that's
it's nuts
making a move.
It's nuts because if the Hawks were in the West, they'd be probably 2nd or 3rd with just how unstable the West is. But now they're in, with them being in the East, just so the conferences have flip-flopped. And right now Atlanta is looking to try and see where they have to go and how do they build their roster to go up against Tatum and Giannis and Embiid, because that's how you have to build your roster.
Yeah,
but
definitely
we'll see.
Because Atlanta doesn't want to get caught in that area where they're kind of stuck at 6. They obviously don't want to drop to play-in status, but then they can't move up really, and then you're really just spinning your wheels at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure Dylan knows they were like this in like the mid or the late 2000s with Joe Johnson, just 6 seed, at best would be the 4 seed, and you just don't want to be there.
Yeah.
If your ceiling's a 4 seed, you don't want to be there. Yep.
Yeah. But I think another name to probably look out for is, I guess Cam Reddish seems like the guy that, he's a young guy who seemingly hasn't caught on anywhere, but the talent's definitely there with him. So I've been kind of wondering where he would go.
Put him back on the Hawks. I'm so upset he's not there and still there.
I liked when they announced that, when the Hawks got him, I thought it was a good opportunity for him, but he just rode the bench. And then the fact that they flipped him for Knox, and it was like, I mean, Knox was a bigger bust than Reddish. At least Reddish wasn't really playing. Knox, we've seen him play, and it was like, yeah, he's not good enough. and then they moved on from Knox at this point as well. And I mean, if they got him back, I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it either. I doubt he'd want to come back.
No, he probably would not.
Right.
Not
No, I
definitely,
wouldn't
especially
think
with all
so.
that coaching stuff going on.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I like the Bucks. I think the Bucks are a good fit for him. You know, the Bucks are one of those teams that seem like they're pretty good with just their coaching. They know how to develop players. Maybe they can like figure out if there's something going wrong with him, and that's why maybe he's just not getting enough time. Maybe it's something in practices that he's just not doing well. Maybe the Bucks have a good history at developing players. Especially bench ones, just people on the court. So it's just I think I like the Bucks. I want the best for Cam Reddish. I think he was a really good player. He was my favorite out of that Duke trio between Zion, him, and RJ Barrett. I thought he was the most intriguing. I thought he could be a really good piece for someone. And it sucks that he hasn't panned out. The Knicks kind of haven't really gave him the best situation either over there. It's like they want to play him, and then it's like Thibodeau's like, nah, he's not in the rotation. We don't want to play him. Yeah. So it's interesting.
That's Thibodeau. Thibodeau is. I mean, it's kind of weird seeing Thibodeau's time in New York, where like this season a lot of people wanted him out. Then the Knicks went on that run of like 9 straight or something. Seemed like everybody loved him. I think now they've kind of fallen a little bit back to earth, and I think Knicks fans are kind
just
of on
average momentum. That's average.
Yeah.
It's average. It's average big city fan momentum. Once their team's hot, like they're gonna go crazy. But then when they realize, like, hey, you still got like 60 games left, and that was just 7 of them, like they'll calm down.
Yeah, I mean, I like Thibodeau. I just feel like as long as you get Thibodeau the right kind of players, he loved Jimmy Butler because Butler is that guy who, he'll get in your face. He's defensive oriented. Thibodeau likes those guys. He loved it with the Celtics. He loved KG, Kendrick Perkins, guys like that. If you give him these flashy finesse guys, doesn't really fit him because that's not his style.
He's the type of coach that can, if you give him the pieces, he can win you a champion, but he's not going to be a great rebuilding coach for you. Like he can get it done if you got it there for him. But if you're telling him, hey, let's get these young guys in here and let's rebuild a roster, he's going to be like, that ain't my thing.
He's not a guy you want for a rebuild, and he's definitely not a guy to develop. And he's really not a guy I've noticed that you want for your franchise for like 5 to 6 years, because I feel like he grinds your players down, not just with the minutes that he plays, but his coaching style. It can be really easy for players just kind of tune him out, unless you're like a Jimmy Butler or a KG.
It's probably like a tough love type of thing.
Yeah, and I just think a lot of players just could get kind of tired of it. So if he goes, from team, franchise to franchise, you could see the team perk up for a year or two, but then eventually come back down to earth. So it's interesting to see just where the Knicks go with all the potential trade assets they could get. They're killing themselves for not going after Donovan Mitchell with how he's looked in Cleveland. I mean, holy heck, he's just on fire. He looks like he's a first-team All-Pro right now. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we know the Knicks fans, they'll point to that move if they come up short this year. They'll be like, we could have had Donovan Mitchell. And Quentin Grimes, who reportedly was the guy that they were unwilling to part with, his career with the Knicks now will be forever linked to Donovan Mitchell's career in Cleveland right now.
Yep.
That's kind of tough on him because he didn't really.
It's not his fault. He didn't do anything wrong.
Right?
No.
Yeah. That's Knicks basketball. That's New York. New York
it's tough.
Just like most of the Northeast, because I'm from Boston, I already know how it is up there. We need results now. We expect to win now, and if we don't, we got to blame it on somebody.
Failure is not an option.
I mean, I'm going through that now, listening to a lot of people talking about Patriots issues, which we'll get into in a little bit here. But yeah, that's just Northeast sports fans.
Sure.
But I guess one last basketball question before we get into football. So Sacramento, do you think? Because I've been fascinated by Sacramento this season because they're fun to watch. They score a lot of points, defense, whatever, but they score a lot. And I've rooted for Sacramento to be relevant because, I was a kid of the 90s, loved watching Sacramento with Bibby or Jason Williams or Chris Webber. And it's finally good to see them back being relevant. Do you think they can sustain it with this current group, or would they benefit from a move maybe? Because, I mean, like you said, Jake, the West is kind of I mean, it's unpredictable right now. Any number of
Yeah.
teams out in the West could really go on a run.
I think they could go for a move, but the question is, I don't know the Kings roster well enough to be able to be like they need this guy and trade this piece. The key is for Sacramento is that De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis are working together super well, because De'Aaron Fox I was not sold on before. It felt like he was a guy that made a lot of really boneheaded decisions at the end of games, and with Sabonis, his passing skills, something clicked, and we saw at the end of last year when they got Fox and they traded they got Sabonis, traded Halliburton, and at first you're like, what are the Kings doing? Halliburton
Right.
is way better than Fox, and I think he is. I'd rather have Halliburton on my team than De'Aaron Fox. But something's working. There's some chemistry thing that's working there. Can they sustain it? They could probably get it to the second round right now with the way that the West is looking. I mean, outside of Denver, what team really gives you a lot of fear on a consistent level? All it takes is for them to get hot. They should go for a trade because it got a lot of momentum. I just don't know what player would fit their system that's available.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not really sure necessarily who's available either. But like I said, I just like watching, the fact that Sacramento is good this year, and they're entertaining to watch. And I love Sabonis as well. I was also one of those who, when they traded Halliburton for him, I thought that was the wrong guy, because it kind of seemed like they drafted Halliburton as like a way to move off of De'Aaron Fox. He had been there for a few years, and the Kings weren't really getting better. But I actually am a Fox fan. I Once again, Freddie, if you're still listening, I thought the Lakers would have done better drafting Fox over Ball, because I always thought Fox was better. But I mean, those wheels ended up with Ball leaving LA for Chicago, and Fox turning into a pretty good player in Sacramento.
No, Fox has won me over. Like he saved his career, and I think a lot of the narratives changed on him. And I'll agree with you also, Kyle, that like it's cool to see the Kings good. I started, I'm a kid of the '90s as well. I remember those early 2000s Sacramento teams, the really only team that could challenge the Lakers. Like they were fun teams to watch, and they have a fantastic fan base. Like really, you go back and watch those old games, their fan base is awesome. They just haven't had anything to cheer about since like 2004. So it's really cool that they're relevant again. It's really cool to see.
All right. Well, Dylan, got anything to add before we get into football? Or
I mean, yeah, I also do think the Kings are probably a team that would be like, it'd be fair to make a move. It's just they're also in, like, I agree with Jake. It's just like, who do you go out and get? It's like you could get someone to help you compete. And I mean, they're third in the West right now. That's nothing to scoff at. Like we said, the West is wide open. So, in 2 weeks, they could be back down to like seventh, but they would only be a game behind from second type thing. But with that being said, it's just interesting. They've fared from having Keegan Murray be a good player, a good rookie that they've drafted. The fourth overall pick. They got a lot of, flack. It was a very interesting choice. People were like, "Ooh, Keegan Murray at 4." Not sure I would have taken him that high, but he's played fairly well there and been one of the better rookies outside of this rookie class. You got Kevin Herter, who you got in a trade. He's been playing fairly well. I believe he started like 43 games.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's started 43 games for him. He's been playing well. They've gotten a lot out of Malik Monk, someone who didn't really do too well on the Lakers, and now that he's in Sacramento, he's been playing well, been a very good bench piece. Just overall, they're doing well. Even someone like Harrison Barnes has been playing very well too. So it's like, they could fare, but it's like, where do you go from there? Like, only thing I could really think is like, they need some more probably center depth off the bench when Sabonis is gone. Rashawn Holmes hasn't been great. They can't rely on Trey Lyles or Chimezie Metu to be great every night. So maybe finding someone like a Jakob Poeltl, I think, would be probably very interesting for him.
He's going to be traded. He's going to be traded. In a matter of just like where he's going to go, and that could be a big domino because he's being traded, guaranteed.
Yeah, I think that would be an amazing piece for that Sacramento team. You could even start him with Sabonis at the 4 and, make some work done happening there. So, it'll be interesting. I do think they could make a good move. They have the pieces to make a decent move, but, we'll see. they still, I imagine, have a lot of their draft picks because they've been bad. You know, they haven't been wanting to trade them, so they could let go of a couple of them to make a move if they think they can compete, especially in a West that's very wide open. And like Jake said again, like they could just get hot and, you know, make it to the second, even third round.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta give Mike Brown a lot of credit. He's gone in there. He's set up a system that has them playing well. But now that Jordan's on here, you know, we already talked about the Rui Hachimura move and all that.
Yes, sir.
Since you're the Laker fan, you know,
Oh yeah, I'm the lone big time Laker fan, man. Oh, I'm a lone Laker fan.
Jake said he's a Jazz fan.
Jazz. Oh, yep. All right. So we all have different Celtics, Lakers, Hawks, and then Jazz. Cool.
Celtics.
Yeah.
Celtics. Y'all lost to the Magic. Y'all can't beat the Magic, man, for some reason.
We won 9 in a row. Tell me how that works.
Yeah, well, they broke the streak, didn't they? Magic broke the streak, right?
We won 9 in a row, though.
That don't matter if the streak's broken.
Lakers won 9 in a
row. Maybe 2 years ago. Maybe. I don't know.
Hey, what's going on, Ryan? So that's my homie Ryan. Appreciate you in the chat. Yeah, fellow Celtics fans, so you know you can't come on my team like that. But yeah, Jordan, I mean, when y'all get 9 in a row, I'll listen to your thoughts on the Magic ending our streak. No, but so what? Yeah. So you know, Lakers got Hachimura. What are your initial thoughts?
I think it was a solid pick. Basically, it was a steal because we didn't really use our first round pick. We used our second or second or third round picks on him, and then Kendrick Nunn. So
seconds.
Yeah. So we didn't really
first round picks to give away anyway.
But then we had the future 27 picks. I mean, I know that's years away, but I know that. You don't do it wrong like 100 times. I know. But I mean, basically Kendrick Nunn.
Get Braun's third kid in that draft.
Yeah. Oh my God. We expected, you know, Kendrick Nunn to be that Nunn of like when he was on the Miami Heat. We didn't get that. He got injured. He came back. He was still not shooting well. So it's basically still for us, man. Even though Rory, he's not really a consistent 3-point shooter, he does, you know, when healthy, he's played with Westbrook before. He's played with Thomas Bryant before. So yeah, it's that chemistry, man.
Fair enough. I'll give him that.
But the question, I'm not sure what they're gonna do when AD gets that. I'm not sure if it's gonna be the 5, he'd be the 4.
Thomas Bryant's playing center. I said this. I was talking to another person who's a Lakers fan. Exactly. I said AD's going to come back and be like, look at Thomas Bryant. He's been playing well at center. I don't want to play power forward. They're too big and they're going to bully me. I'm going to get injured. And then he's going to play power forward and Thomas Bryant's going to play center and Hachimura is coming off the bench.
Pretty much. That's basically how I see it going. Now, Jordan, one last question before we get into NFL.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're expecting other moves from the Lakers.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do. And this is, I mean, we've been talking about like Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka. They've had a plethora of time to make moves, and now they make this move, which is really he's not that bad. But yeah, I am surprised. I am expecting them to make more picks or more trades. I heard Russell Westbrook is still in the Spurs. I'm not sure what we're gonna get with the Spurs. I think he's still in the trade package somehow. I'm not sure who we'll get. But
Spurs. Who'd you even get there? Doug McDermott? Like, congrats. I don't know.
McDermott and Pirtle. That's not gonna be worth.
You just traded for Hachimura. Why get more picks?
Well, I just heard that Russell was still in the trade package. So. Possibly so. Lakers need to get some shooters. If they can,
definitely getting Doug McDermott then if it's a Spurs trade.
Well, Doug can shoot, right?
All right. Sure. No, I mean,
at Creighton,
it would be better than what you have. I mean,
yeah, we'll see. Is the deadline after the All-Star game or is it before the All-Star?
Yes.
Is it before or is it after?
I thought it was after.
I think it's after.
It was before. Let me look
I
so we
think-
don't lead our viewers astray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because I remember the
Yeah, for
time
some
like
reason I thought it was
DeMarcus
that.
Cousins got traded like during the All-Star game, and like they gave him questions, and he was like, "Oh man, I love New Orleans," because that's where the All-Star game was at.
Yeah.
It is 10 days before
Yeah,
the
but
All-Star
before we,
game. So trade deadline's on February
10 days
9th.
before.
Okay.
Yep.
February 9th. Okay. So is the All-Star game then around like Valentine's Day, the
Man,
14th?
imagine if an All-Star gets traded, and it's like, man, we're gonna have to change your jersey.
Right.
Oh man.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. I feel like let's get into NFL now.
Yeah. No, I mean, like,
Let's do it.
well, before we get into the NFL, I just want to say I know I missed the introduction. I just want to thank Jake for hopping on the show with us, man. Like, being part of the Big Three, man.
Yeah.
Uh,
Excited to be
appreciate
here.
that,
Thanks,
bro.
Jordan.
Like, I know I missed the intro, so I was doing my interview, but yeah, man, I'm glad that you're on the show with us, man.
Cool.
Another-
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Another cool sports mom to have on this show, so another cool addition.
Let's do it.
I'll let him know.
I know you're Alabama fan, so let's go,
I don't
baby.
know you're a Laker fan.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, baby. Yeah, how do you feel? Do you think we should have been in the college football playoffs, or do you think we should have been out?
No. Look. I'm going to say this before we get into the NFL. I lived in Alabama for a couple of years, right when Nick Saban first came along. So I was a fan of it. I'm like, okay, Nick Saban, I'll be a fan. They were bad that first year and a half. So it's not like I joined after 2012. Just want to say I'm not a bandwagon fan. Also with Alabama, like I have a lot of homies back there, so I support them. They had no business being in the college playoff, even though TCU got their tails just destroyed by Georgia. The four right teams, based on the criteria that we have, got in. It just happens that Georgia's an awesome team. That's all. I'll say at that.
Yeah, I was an Alabama fan that wanted them in there, but I guess
There's Alabama fans that know what's going on. Yeah, George's telling all of us.
They're out there.
Hey,
Out
look,
there.
I'll say this. My podcast is named The Unbiased Fan for a reason. So I'll just
Fair enough.
facts.
All right, fair.
First
But
show on,
we'll
Jake's
be there
on the
next
show
year, Kyle. Don't worry
currently.
about that. Don't worry about that, Kyle. We'll be there next year.
I
We'll see.
guess. Yeah, I mean, if you don't lose to Tennessee or LSU again. Well,
See,
well,
Kyle,
another
he's
thing-
the guy.
Watch out for Vanderbilt.
Oh.
Because this is another thing as we go to the NFL. All of these Alabama fans who are like, "Oh, I'm so glad Bill O'Brien's gone." That wasn't your issue, to be honest.
No.
The
I didn't know he was a
talent
part of the
offensively.
I didn't even know he was part of our staff. I thought he was in the NFL somewhere.
To be fair,
I
I
thought most
forgot
people
Bill
did
O'Brien was
until-
also on Alabama's staff for a
I was
little
like, when he
bit.
went to the Patriots, I was like, oh wow, he's in that.
Most people didn't know
Wow.
about it. Then when they said the Patriots got him, all the Alabama fans were like, "Good, get him out
No
of
wonder,
here."
well, no wonder Bryce Young got hurt during the season because Bill O'Brien, man. It's
Right, that's why.
like, I'm just messing with you.
I know. All right, man. Let's get into the NFL.
Let's go.
So we had the divisional games last week, and like we did last week, we would go through the matchups and kind of see, what performances stood out, the losing team where they kind of fell off. I mean, you know how we do it. So let me pull up this. Here we go. So first game we want to talk about. Let's look at Jacksonville and Kansas City. Kansas City won that game 27-20. But for Jacksonville, first time being in the divisional round, I felt like they played really well. And Christian Kirk had a big drop. There was that fumble as they were going in for a score from, was it Ingram, I think? Which kind of turned the tide of that game. If they connect on those two plays there, could be looking at a different game. So my question to you guys is, one, how would you rate Jacksonville's season, and how optimistic are you going forward? Actually, we'll start with that one, and then I'll ask my other question after. So I'll start with Jake on this one.
All right.
How do you feel about Jacksonville?
If I'm grading them based off of preseason to now that their season's over, it's an A+. Like it's 100. If you were to tell any Jacksonville fan, hey, your team, you had 2 years back to back where you're the worst team in the league. You had, without a doubt, the single worst NFL head coach experience in Urban Meyer. And then this year, you're going to not only make the playoffs, but win a playoff game. You're going to come back from, what was it? Was it 27 or 28-0 over the Chargers and win? And all of a sudden, now you look at Trevor Lawrence and it's like, man, is Trevor Lawrence, is he the 5th best quarterback in the NFL? It's like, is he a legitimate top 5 QB? Like, it's 100%. Like, if I'm a Jacksonville fan, I am over the moon because this team was dead in the water. There were people actually saying, is Trevor Lawrence a bust because of how highly rated he was in the combine and in the pre-draft. People are comparing him to Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, and they're looking at him like, man, this guy isn't that good. He comes out, does what he does. It's an A+. They obviously need to make some upgrades. They need better receivers. Christian Kirk is a good receiver, but he's not a 1. He's a 2. They need some help there. Their defense is getting better. They have a great coach, and I'm ecstatic. I like Jacksonville. I like watching them. They're super fun to watch. The head coach, Doug Peterson, even said in the preseason that he wasn't sure if he could win this locker room over, that there was so much distrust towards the coaching because of how bad Urban Meyer was. And to just do what they did, and I think they won like their last 6 games or won like 6 of their last 7 games to make in the playoffs. Like, you're ecstatic. That AFC South is a trash division. You're going to the playoffs every year with Trevor Lawrence. So A+.
Yeah, I agree with that. Dylan, we'll go with you next.
Yeah.
So
Basically.
I'll ask you a slightly different question about Jacksonville.
Okay.
Because Jake brought up in that division, not the best division in the NFL. So is it crazy to think that Jacksonville couldn't win that division the next 5 years?
No, I mean, it's not crazy. I mean, you got to think what's going to happen in Tennessee and like Indianapolis. I think, we can count the Texans out for a little bit. They're going to be in their rebuilding mode. They're not going to be, contenders unless they get like a story like a Trevor Lawrence where like Bryce Young or CJ Stroud's just incredibly good. And it's just like, man, we can coach around this kid. Let's do it. But with that being said, Houston's not going to be good. Indianapolis could get a good QB like an Aaron Rodgers-esque, and that could immediately change our whole opinion on what we think about Indianapolis. Tennessee, they're on the decline a little bit. Questions around Ryan Tannehill. Didn't seem like Malik Willis was that guy. They ended up having to play Josh Dobbs in a game where that would have decided if they could make the playoffs or not. So a lot of question marks there. So it's not crazy to think that Jacksonville could run it as long as they can just stay consistent. I think Doug Peterson's one of those coaches that he's not going to have like a sophomore slump as a coach. I feel like he's going to go out there and be 9-8, 10-7, type thing again. I don't think Jacksonville is going to go out and amaze anybody next year, but it's not crazy to think that they could be a solid team and win their division because they play in an especially weak division. I think Jacksonville could go out and be conference winners 5 years, even if they don't get it 1 year. Maybe you got an Indianapolis who just has an amazing season if they can figure out their quarterback issues because they do have a good roster already. They just so happen to lack the biggest position you need in the NFL. But I think Jacksonville could do it.
Indy needs a coach too. Can't be hiring analysts. I mean, they hire us to be D coordinators if they're gonna put Saturday as the head coach. I mean, come on, that's terrible.
Right. Exactly.
And they could put me in the GM office. I can make some work. It's not too crazy.
Yeah. So then, Jordan, my question for you is with Trevor Lawrence. Do you think this playoff performance has elevated his status among AFC quarterbacks? And where do you have Lawrence after this run by Jacksonville?
I mean, the Jags actually shocked me on many levels. Like, Jaguars have always been that bottom tier team.
Blake Bortles.
Yeah, Blake Bortles, like Urban Meyer era. Thank God he's gone. But I mean, when I saw the news that Doug Peterson got the job, I'm like, wow, this could really change things because, he won some people with the Eagles. He had a championship level mindset. And think about it, I think it was on the Cheap Seats podcast. We said that, really, Lawrence was I mean, the Jaguars, they were like a few plays away from beating the Chiefs. Like the one player didn't fumble the ball. Christian Kirk didn't drop that pass. We've been talking about a different story. So they're right on the cusp of getting there to like the promised land. But I would say, I mean, they have a good defense. Lawrence, I mean, I would rank him. See, I don't know. Allen kind of like in the playoffs, he hasn't really proven to me that he can go to that, because he's always lost in the AFC Championship game. So he hasn't really. And Diggs is frustrated. So it's like, where do I rank him? Because like we have Burrows, Mahomes, or Mahomes, Burrows, and for number 1 and 2, I'd say 3 Herbert, 4 Lamar, and then 5 Lawrence, Allen 6.
I mean, there's some arguments that that ranking the AFC quarterbacks is definitely a very interesting choice, especially with how Josh Allen's played in the playoffs. It's like you can get a great regular season out of it, but when the playoffs comes,
it's like Allen had all that talent. I mean, he does. I mean, I know the defense was limping with Von Miller, and Michael Hyde was out with I think it was a hip or I forget what injury it was beginning of the season. Then I know Poyer was kind of banged up, but on that side of the ball, they had Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. I know the running game wasn't as good because Singletary is kind of like, that average, kind of like above average running back. So I mean, Allen can do it all by himself, but he had Diggs and all those pieces to to get to that game. So
I mean, I know people are saying about Allen's weapons or whatever. I feel like you got to kind of put them in perspective. Yes, Diggs is a legit number 1.
He's got one weapon. That's it.
It's Diggs. The running backs, they don't use them enough, and I don't think they're necessarily game breakers.
Yeah. They have other weapons. They have other weapons, but they're too inconsistent.
3, yeah. And McKenzie would be a good 4, not a 3.
Well, everyone was hyping up Gabe Davis because he would be the next 2, but he didn't really prove to us that he was that 2.
Right, and that's why I think, Buffalo looked good in the regular season, but when you say Allen had a lot of weapons, it's like he has Diggs. That's the guy that everybody looks at and is like, we got to stop him.
Yep.
If Dawson Knox is going to catch 140 yards and beat you, knock yourself out. But how often is he going to do that? So
not often enough.
Right. So I feel like for Buffalo, they're going to have to use this offseason. I mean, we'll talk about Buffalo a little bit more in a little bit, but I feel like Buffalo's going to have to really look at their offensive talent and make some serious upgrades if they want to get Josh Allen.
Yeah, because I heard Diggs was like, he got pissed, got stormed out of the locker room, and he had to get pulled back to the locker room. It's like,
I mean, he's frustrated.
How many pictures have we seen of Diggs just sitting there on the field, just like disappointed, like, yo, we could have been there,
sure,
4 times, 3 times,
sure. I want to add in one thing, Jordan, that you said when you're ranking. You said Justin Herbert over Trevor Lawrence. I want you just to kind of think about this. Swap the quarterback, swap the teams. You give Trevor Lawrence that Charger offense and that defense, that entire roster. That roster is stacked, and you send Justin Herbert to Jacksonville. Who's better? Which team sees the improvement? For me, if I had to pick between the two, if I'm ranking, I'm taking Trevor Lawrence over Justin Herbert, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that Trevor Lawrence made the comeback and Justin Herbert couldn't get it done.
I still might pick. I mean, so if you put Herbert on the Jags and put Lawrence on the Chargers, right? So I still pick the Jags because of Doug Peterson. I think he would elevate Herbert.
The Chargers coaching staff is pretty bad, but the point is that Herbert's got amazing talent.
Oh yeah,
Herbert and Jacksonville's best receiver is Christian Kirk. Like, where would he be on the Chargers roster? He'd be their third
wide receiver 3.
Yep.
Yeah, second when Mike Williams is out,
which is often.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I think Lawrence is getting come really back. So we'll see how he does. Another piece, but he hasn't really been seen the field for over a year and a half now. So who knows how he? But yeah, I mean, I see your point where it's like Lawrence have the better weapons than Mike Williams, but can he stay healthy though? Mike Williams hasn't really been healthy, and Keenan Allen missed a couple games too. So it's like Eckler kind of like had a rough start, and then he picked it up. So yeah, I
Should have
mean,
made the Pro Bowl. Just saying.
oh, I agree. But yeah, I mean, as far as like your question, I still would pick the Jets because it's the better. They have the better head coach. And I would trust Peterson over Staley. And people want Staley out. You know what I mean? I know Key Williams and I know Freddie, and they were saying, "Oh, they should have fired Staley on the field that game because there's no way it's hard to should have lost that game." Like, and like you can't blame it all on Staley, but it's like he's part of the problem, and I don't know why they're keeping him. I don't know.
Chargers have bad ownership, and I'm just going to say this. I don't want to talk too much about the Chargers because that's last week. If I own the Chargers, not only am I firing Staley, I'm calling Sean Payton. Fan, I saw what he did with Drew Brees and with limited receiver help. I mean, could you just close your eyes and just be like, what is the Sean Payton premier destination, regardless of if the coach has locked down his spot? Like Andy Reid's not going anywhere, but like just any spot, the Chargers are worst, the third spot. Like that is made for Sean Payton. But the Chargers have bad ownership, and they're just going to hold on to Staley. It's a shame.
Yeah, I agree. In a year you have Sean Payton as a head coach, you know, keeping Staley is absurd. You know, if maybe Sean Payton wasn't there, you'd go keeping Staley. It's not too crazy. Yep. But you have a coach out there would be perfect for your star quarterback. So it's like, why don't you get him? You know, it's like it's tailor-made. You know, you want to win a Super Bowl? There's a coach out there for you that can probably help you. And It's like you're choosing to keep the dude who blew a big lead against the Jaguars in the playoffs. Okay.
Definitely. It almost seemed like I would almost want to hear that Peyton wasn't interested in the job, and then I could say, "Fine, keeping Staley makes sense."
Yeah, there you go.
Because then you could wants the job. Then you're like, and you kept Staley over him. It just gets worse for them.
Yeah, you could defend it. You could be like, "Oh, at least we tried." That's what you can say as a Chargers owner. We tried to get him. He just didn't want to be here.
Exactly. All right. So, question for you guys for Kansas City. I mean, we don't have to go too much into this one because once Kansas City loses or whatever, we'll probably talk more about their season. But the Patrick Mahomes injury, where he got rolled up on, he's limping and all that.
Yeah, that looks scary.
It didn't look good, definitely.
Nope.
Would you be worried about him this coming weekend against a Cincinnati team? Like, do you think he'll be limited in any way, or do you think he'll be fine? Even with the injury, because we saw him scramble a little bit in the game, even though he was clearly wincing or whatever. But like, how worried are you about Patrick Mahomes this upcoming weekend? And I mean, either one of you can start.
Sure, I'll just stay with this real quick. That let's say Patrick Mahomes at 70% of his normal ability, and he doesn't have his scrambling ability. We still get an elite pocket passer, an elite play caller, and as a Saints fan, I would take a 70% Patrick Mahomes over Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton. So should they be worried? Yeah, of course you're going to be worried because Cincinnati's playing out of their mind. You don't want your quarterback to be limited, but knowing Mahomes, knowing Andy Reid, they're going to concoct and create an offense and a game plan that's going to make it so he doesn't have to do as much magic as he can. I guess the only concern would be, can Mahomes help himself to not scramble and try too hard and potentially hurt himself?
Okay. Dylan?
Yeah, basically to piggyback off that, you have a great coach in Andy Reid who is going to concoct a game plan to help like Patrick Mahomes if he has some shortcomings with that ankle. But with that being said, you need to trust Mahomes isn't going to try to do anything wild, try to do anything crazy, because he's that type of quarterback. He has some fight or flight responses. Sometimes he's going to fight, and if he thinks he can make a play, if he has to put his body on the line, he's going to do it. You know, that could also run some risks of re-injuring himself, which should be worried. No matter what, you're always going to be worried when your star quarterback gets injured, and like, especially in the playoffs, and then going into the next week, you're kind of just going to always be worried. Like, he could hurt this ankle at any point in time, and you know, Chad Henne's running the drives, and he got a touchdown drive. So I won't bring too much hate on Chad Henne, but at the end of the day, it's still Chad Henne. But yeah, you know, there's going to be a lot of worries. You know, Patrick Mahomes is that team's identity when it comes to that offensive system. That's Patrick Mahomes. Like he's the main cog in the system. He makes all the plays happen. So losing him would be very scary. So I think anytime Patrick Mahomes gets hits, you're going to hear a lot of gasps in Kansas City. You're going to hear a lot of like, ooh, like anytime Patrick Mahomes goes down, like it's going to be dead silent. And when you hear him get up, everyone's going to be cheering for him. So it's going to be crazy to see, but I'm interested. I think he'll be fine though. I mean, if he finished the game, there's no chance that he's not fucking playing.
Yeah. Jordan, how worried are you about Mahomes?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as worried, but I mean, I think of it as like I said in the group chat, like over the weekend, I think it as like a boxing match. Like, you know, if you see your opponent like limping, and you know, the defense is gonna know that. You know what I'm saying? So they might try to get to the quarterback or try to get to Mahomes. So the O-line has to have basically a perfect game to protect Mahomes, because I think a high ankle sprain, normally it takes like 3 to 6 weeks to recover, but now it's gonna be like a couple of days for him to recover. So
the playoffs, them injuries heal fast during the playoffs.
Yeah, and plus adrenaline's gonna be a factor. But I mean, I'm not losing faith in Mahomes, but I'm just worried that the defense would try to get to him and try to, you know, cause more injury. But Mahomes, like I've seen it, like I mean, that's just the heart that Mahomes has, you know. Like you said, that's what separates winning quarterbacks. You know, he wants to play, even though people would want him to sit, you know, rest up during that game. But it was a playoff game. But this game, I'm not really as worried. I'm just worried about the Bengals defense, about getting to him for further injuries. So, but then again, like he's a pocket passing quarterback too. So it's not like he can stay in the pocket, but even that scramble he had when he got hurt, like that was more risky. Like I don't know why. I mean, that's just the heart he had, like the dog he has in him. So, yeah, that's the only have to play a perfect game to protect him at all costs. So that's a tough hill to climb, but it could be done.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's move to the other side of the AFC. Bills, Bengals. I was one of those who was on the Bengals heavy in this one. You know, the weird thing with Buffalo is, you know, you would think they would be good in the snow, inclement weather, or whatever. They just don't seem like they're comfortable with it.
It's because they're not a team built for the snow. Snow's right. Having a good running type of system, and Buffalo's an air it out team in a cold weather offense, which is kind of weird. Cold weather climate, which is kind of weird.
Right, because that should be their home field advantage come January or whatever. That the weather's so bad, other teams going in there may not be ready for it. But Cincinnati came into this game like, okay, it's snowing, sure. And Buffalo really struggled with it because, like you said, Dylan, with the lack of running game, and then the passing game kind of went south. Cincinnati knocked them in the mouth early, and Buffalo really couldn't recover from it. So, question for this one, you know, we can start with Jordan because you kind of brought up Josh Allen a little bit before. And then you talked about Steph Diggs as well. So yeah. Steph Diggs basically said, like, you know, he's upset about it because they keep kind of losing the same way, same spot, and he's just not comfortable with that. So are you okay with Steph Diggs being upset at the Buffalo situation?
I mean, I definitely understand his frustration. I mean, Josh Allen is a terrific quarterback. I mean, plays at a high level, but when it comes to like playoff time, it's like, okay, they had a close game with the Chiefs last year. Okay, that was a back and forth slugfest shootout. But other than that, it's like, what? I mean, y'all almost barely won against Miami with a third string quarterback or third string quarterback. He threw a couple picks that game. I mean, I know it's snowing in Buffalo, but they're used to that. That's not an excuse. So I don't know who he puts the blame on. I don't know if it's Allen. I mean, I definitely do get Stephon Diggs' frustration, and he's kind of reiterating what I said. Like, you know, they've been there, they just haven't, you know, they just haven't gotten to the promised land yet. So I'm not sure. Like all y'all said, that maybe Bills need another another number 2 receiver. It's just like the Ravens. We need some more offensive weapons on that side of the ball. So it's like kind of the same situation.
Okay. So Dylan, I'm gonna ask you this: do you think Buffalo's window has closed already with this current group that they have?
No, I think you still have a window. I mean, Josh Allen is still an exceptional quarterback. Stephon Diggs is still one of the better receivers in the league. You know, it's not like this Buffalo team has tons of holes. It's not like they're super aging and better, like they're having a bunch of people retire. It's not like they have a coach who's ready to retire. It's not like anything like that. They have a window. It's just like, how long is it going to take until all the players around you in that window get tired of it? You know, get tired of losing like Stephon Diggs is, you know, get tired of, you know, making it to the AFC Championship, the divisional round, and losing. You know, it's a matter of when those players are going to get tired and be like, hey, like, we tried. It obviously didn't work. I want to move on. I do think they have a window for a couple of years. You know, Diggs is under contract. Like I said, you just re-signed Dawson Knox to a good contract. Josh Allen is still in a good age. You know, he's still going to be one of those top tier quarterbacks for a little bit now. You just got to figure out what you want to do at running back. It doesn't seem like Devin Singletary's that answer as a true running back. You know, he seems like one of those running backs you can kind of throw in there in the pass attack. You know, maybe give him the ball here and there. He has some spurts of energy, but he isn't your true back. James Cook seemed okay. He seemed like he could be a good back and also spurts. And then Naheem Hines, again, one of those backs that was good in spurts. So they need to find a running back that can also be a true just number one. And maybe they just go by committee until they can figure that out. But they need to figure out who's going to be their number one running back option. You know, getting Von Miller back next year, hopefully healthy all season, will change a lot. I imagine definitely having him on the field would have changed at least some of the stuff that went on in that Cincinnati game. I do believe Cincinnati probably still would have won, but obviously having him out there would have changed it. No, I don't think their window's closed. They just have to figure out how to get it together. You know, I've said I've been off the Buffalo train this year because the last 2 years I picked them to go to the Super Bowl and they just couldn't do it. So this year I was kind of like, this is a show me year. I don't trust them in the playoffs. And that's obviously why. So they just have to kind of figure it out. You don't know what it is there, but we'll see. You know, I think the running back issue is definitely one of my bigger issues that they have there, though.
Okay.
I just want to add in real quick for Dylan, as far as the window's closed. I agree. Their window's not closed, but you made a great point that I'm more concerned about their mentality as a team over the window. And I'm just going to draw some experience as a Saints fan. When you lose in the playoffs in heartbreaking fashion or disappointing fashion year over year, that carries over. For the Saints, we had the Minneapolis Miracle, which I still hate. We had the no pass interference call against the Rams in the NFC Championship game. And then the overtime no pass interference, offensive pass interference against the Vikings again, 3 years in a row. And that just gutted the Saints. And you have to worry for the Bills. Are you going to have it up here in your head? Man, we just keep losing. I think that's what Diggs is really frustrated with is we can't get over this hump. What is it going to take to get us over that next little bit? So window not closed, but definitely some concerns over how strong this team is mentally.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But yeah, so my question to you, Jake, is now coming into this season, I feel like everybody was, you know, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, like that was the clear top three in the AFC. Do you think that this game, plus this season, you know, last week as well, is it obviously now Mahomes and Burrow as a clear top two? And I think there's some separation between Allen and those guys. Do you agree with that, or do you think Allen should still be mentioned up there with the other two?
Allen's clearly number 3, and that is no knock. Look, Allen's a good quarterback. I'll put it this way: when you have the big three quarterbacks everyone's talking about, Mahomes, Allen, and Burrow, when Allen is at his peak, when his ceiling is just as good as Mahomes' ceiling. Like when he does stuff, it's amazing. It's what Tony Romo, when he's doing the play-by-play, is called Alien and Superman. Like it really is. But his floor is really bad. It's turnovers. It's missing guys on what should be touchdowns. It's trying too hard and just not taking what the defense gives you. Whereas with Burrow, Burrow's ceiling may not be quite as high as Mahomes or Allen, but Burrow doesn't choke. Burrow performs under pressure. So for me, if I'm ranking my quarterbacks, Mahomes is number one, and it's pretty clear for me. And I've been that way this whole year, where Mahomes, when you just watch him, you take away the numbers, you just watch Mahomes. It's like, yeah, dude, he makes it look so easy. He wins. But Burrow's number two, and in this game for me, it should change a lot for people, because he went in there and he just didn't give a fuck. Like, he's just like, I don't care if it's snowing or raining or anything. I'm just gonna win, because he doesn't fold under pressure. And Josh Allen felt like it just. I don't remember who said it, but it might have been you, Kyle. That the Cincinnati just kicked Buffalo right in they punch him in the mouth, and Josh Allen couldn't punch back, and I think that's the difference there. Josh Allen's not a scrub, though. He's not. I don't want to sound like I'm a Josh Allen hater or I'm a Buffalo hater. He's a great quarterback. He can't help himself. He's like Brett Favre. He just can't help himself. And if you're Buffalo, you have to live with the fact that he's going to turn the ball over and he's going to cost you wins.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All right, so now to talk about Cincinnati, let's look at Cincinnati, Kansas City, since that's the matchup coming up this weekend. I think my first question will be, and I think all of you can answer this really quickly. Could we be looking at, I think based off of last year, a lot of people were looking at Mahomes and Allen as the next rivalry in the AFC. But could it be that Mahomes and Burrow might be the new Brady Manning? Like, how many of you agree with that?
So I'm gonna take a quick Daniel Cormier line. It's not a rivalry if you lose all the matchups. You know, Kansas City has to win. Kansas City has to win. Kansas City has to win. I'm sorry, it's not a rivalry if you lose all the matchups. And so until Kansas City can get a number on the board, no. You know, and that's just my opinion on it. You know, Joe Burrow comes out here in the AFC Championship and just puts on a game and wins. It's like, yeah, it's like these are two of the best quarterbacks in the league, and you can argue about them career-wise, but we're talking about team for team. The Bengals would be better.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll agree that was a great point, Dylan. Like yes, we could make the argument that Mahomes and Burrow could be the next Brady Allen, Brady Manning, as far as their talent levels or what they can do, but they need to win. And I think the thing that's going to keep Burrow in the driver's seat for that rivalry over Allen is the simple fact that Burrow, what I talked about before, Burrow's floor is just higher than almost any other quarterback besides Mahomes. But again, Kansas City's got to get some W's here. If they lose, then it's just going to, well, this isn't a rivalry. This is just two great quarterbacks that play really good and make for, good Sundays to watch football.
Okay. Yeah, Jordan, thoughts?
I mean, Jake and Dylan kind of stole the words out of my mouth. Like, I mean, it's not really a rivalry unless, like, one team wins and then the other team wins, and then I mean, aren't the Bengals like 3-0 against them, I believe, or did Chiefs win?
It's when Burrow plays against Mahomes, it's 3-0.
Yep.
Yeah, because they beat him in the AFC regular season last year. Well, last year with the whole in the playoffs, or was it regular season still that game they beat them?
Yeah, they beat them.
They're 3-0. Twice last year, once this year.
Yep.
Gosh. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think just like Jake said, I mean, it's not really a rivalry. It's just two of the great quarterbacks in the AFC just going at it. But yeah, I had Kansas City beating Cincinnati the one time because they had Tyreek Hill, but it's like really, it's like damn.
One thing I want to add in real quick, I'm kind of going backwards in my head.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning always lost to Tom Brady for like the first 5 or 6 years in their rivalry. So the story hasn't been written yet. It well could turn into that. We're not going to know how great this rivalry is until 2028 or 2030 at this point. But again, they have to win. But yeah, I'm just kind of going back because I was really watching football back in the day. The knock on Manning was can't beat Brady. He's not good enough to beat Brady.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as Gregory puts, Bengals have better running backs.
He loves that's my Foster dad. He loves the OU running backs. He loves the OU. We're big OU guys. He loves the OU running backs. Mixon and P. Ryan is his dream backfield.
Mixon's a
Yeah.
fucking stud. He stole Buffalo's lunch money all day on Sunday. It was brutal.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
He took it personally, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You're right. There we go. But for Kansas City, though, is Pacheco clearly the running back that they need to go forward with?
Who knows? Kansas City always has running backs that just step up and do good for like 2-3 years, and it's like then they're not good. Like, remember when Clyde Edwards-Helaire was supposed to be that guy, and like he was actually playing really well for Kansas City, and then like 2-3 years later, it's like, well, he's actually not that good. He just had some juice that we got out of him. So who knows? I mean, for right now, yes, he has the hot hand. Definitely, you want to ride the hot hand when it comes to running backs, but for the long term, who knows? I mean, he was a 7th round pick, so you're going to have good value on him. But at the end of the day, it's not like you spent a first on him. So, if he has a bad season, Kansas City can only be like, well, it's not like we invested a lot in you, and you could just move on from him.
Yeah, for Sunday, he's the guy, absolutely. And it's not just that Kansas City doesn't have like a set running back. It's Andy Reid's offense his whole career. He's never had a true, like, I know he had
Le'Shawn.
What was it? Westbrook for Philly, but he never had. He's always kind of had a more unique approach to the running game, and so he's going to go with the hot hand, and it should be him. Now next year, who knows?
Yeah, definitely. Let's see, Gregory jumping in again. Have the Chiefs ever had a long-term running
Priest
back?
Holmes?
I guess Jamal Charles. Priest Holmes, yeah.
Yeah, Jamal Charles. Larry what was it? Larry Johnson? Was he the running back back in the day?
Yeah, out of Penn State. Yeah.
Yeah, they've had some backs.
They've had a few. All right, so
Pacheco had a good game. Yeah, I'll say Pacheco had a good game against the Jaguars. So he's definitely going to be the number.
No, he was good.
Running back one.
Good.
So.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so now let's get into picks for the game. So each one of you give me your pick, and then give me your key for your team winning that game, for winning this game. Let's start with Dylan on this one. Who do you have, and what's the key?
Man, I've been tossing around this game back and forth. I tossed around the Buffalo game a lot. I thought Cincinnati was really going to have to prove it to me because I was like, they got some offensive line injuries. They didn't play super well against the Ravens. You got to give the Ravens props now, especially with how well they played, especially with what Cincinnati did to Buffalo. I like Cincinnati. I mean, 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes. They beat them in Arrowhead a couple of times, so it's not like this is new waters. It'd be different, if Joe Burrow was undefeated against Mahomes in Cincinnati and he was going to Arrowhead for the first time. But he's not. He's been here. He's done that. He's beat them at the highs before, and so he's beat them in the playoffs before. So I think I'm going to ride with the hot hand and go Cincinnati. I was one of those people at the start of the season. I was like, I don't know if Cincinnati can repeat. Is it one of those type of seasons? Are they actually good? And seeing them do it again, I'm going to pick Cincinnati. I've seen them do it before. It's not crazy to think that they can do it. So, yeah, I'm going Cincinnati.
Okay. Jordan, go with you. Who do you have, and what's the key for that team winning?
I want to put for Mahomes. And I think the key to win is just protect Mahomes. If we all know that Mahomes, if he goes down with an injury, he's gonna come back and he wants to play. That's Michael Jordan, and he wants to play. No excuses, you know what I'm saying? So, I have the Chiefs winning this game. I said the Chiefs and Eagles in the Super Bowl. So just the key is for me is just to keep the running game going, target Kelsey, and then but the big key is just keep Mahomes protected, because obviously he's coming in the game wobbled or hobbled, so hobbled. Wobbled.
I know what you meant.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the key for me to if he can stay in the pocket, have time in the pocket, make throws. This is their game. If Kelsey gets hot, like he had like 13 catches the last game.
Yeah.
So if they can target him, maybe get Juju Smith going, get Pacheco going, get McKinnon going. It could be a runaway. But if not, then Bengals can turn this game around and win.
All right. Jake, who do you have and what's your key?
So, like Dylan, I've been going back and forth on this one because I think these are two teams that are just, they're so good, they're so talented, and I have to go with what my gut reaction is, and it's Cincinnati. I've taken the Bengals to win, and a lot of it comes from watching football this weekend. I watched Kansas City and Jacksonville. They looked good. I watched Cincinnati play Buffalo, who everybody was picking Buffalo to win. Everyone was picking Buffalo was anointed in the preseason to just win the Super Bowl, it felt like.
Mhm.
And as I'm watching Cincinnati go in the snow on the road in a hostile environment and just take ownership. They took the game. The effort level in Cincinnati was so much more noticeable. Where the running game, it felt like Buffalo didn't want to tackle, and it felt like Cincinnati just wanted to play physical and play tough. And as I'm watching them play, I'm like, that's the best team in the league. I said it in the group chat. I'm pretty sure I'm like, that's the best team right now. They're the hottest hand. And I think the key is going to be for Cincinnati is the offensive line, not just protecting Joe Burrow from the pass rush, because Kansas City does have a good pass rush. They can really sack the quarterback, but it's going to come down to also those running the run game with Mixon. Mixon completely owned the Buffalo Bills on Sunday and really kept. They had to pull guys down in the box and open things for Joe Burrow and the play action, all those basic things for football that the running game gives you. If they can do that against Kansas City, they're going to win. Joe Burrow has no fear. He has a I don't give a fuck about anything kind of attitude, and it's really awesome to watch. He just doesn't care. He's Tom Brady esque in that sense with his mentality, and I think he can just go in there, get it done. He has an excellent wide receiver. On three different levels, a great tight end, great running backs. His O line was dominant, and I think that's going to be the key. Mahomes obviously is going to be a big battle. I think, but whoever, let me put it this way: whichever offensive line plays better is going to win the game, and I think Cincinnati's O line is going to play better.
Okay. And I just wanted to say Gregory put Bengals by 13. I'm actually on the Bengals as well. We'll just let you know, Jake, I was one of the few who liked the Bengals against the Bills, but I'll also piggyback off of the Mixon part because I said going into the playoffs that Mixon was going to be a big part for Cincinnati and then that does work with the offensive line, of course, because as a running back, if the offensive line can't create openings for you, you can't really do much of anything. But for Mixon, if he gets it going, that makes their offense multidimensional, which makes them that much more dangerous. It's one thing going up against Cincinnati where you're trying to figure out, oh man, we got Chase, we got Higgins, we got Boyd, Hurst. What do we do? But if you get to now worry about Mixon as well, like at that point, it's almost what can we do? Like we almost have to like sit back and hope Burrow misses a read or something, and we could force a turnover. So I'm on the Bengals on this one, and I think Mixon will be the key. But also, like you and Jordan said, the offensive lines for both teams will be where everybody's eyes will be. Because for Mahomes, if they can keep him upright, he'll be fine. And if they can create holes for Mixon, then Cincinnati's got this one. But I got Cincinnati as well.
I just want to add in for Mixon how good he was is that there were so many games against Buffalo where it should have been a 1 yard loss and he turned it into like a 4 yard gain, or it's a 2 yard gain and all of a sudden it's like a 9 yard gain. That kind of effort is really hard to tackle down and your defense gets really tired. So I think Mixon is going to be huge in determining who wins. Agree with you 100%, Kyle.
All right, so we got 3 out of 4 of us are going on Cincinnati. So we'll see. We'll see next week how that turns out. But now, turn over to the NFC, and I think we can start with the Eagles and the Giants. We'll talk about the Eagles when we talk about the conference championship. Let's focus on the Giants right now. I would have to say, pretty good season by them. Not a lot of people were picking them to make the playoffs. I was one of those who thought they were going to fall out after their hot start, but they found ways to win late in the season. My question about the Giants, I think I'll ask all of you this because I don't really have many questions about the Giants, but looking at Daniel Jones, looking at Saquon Barkley, if you can only give a long-term deal or a next contract without franchise tagging one of them? Who are you franchise tagging, and who are you giving your contract to? Let's start with Jordan. Well, Jordan, you're muted. Hold on.
Yeah, that's easy for me because I'm franchising Daniel Jones, and I'm signing Saquon. I mean, Saquon is like I've been telling Freddie and in the group chat, like Saquon is the whole offense. You know what I'm saying? Like Daniel had made a couple good throws here, but like Saquon carried the team all year. I mean, bear with me, like he did. Like it's his first season like healthy. You know what I'm saying? So it's like his first full season healthy. He's been dealing with knee injuries and quad injuries, I think so. But yeah, I'm definitely franchising Daniel Jones. Maybe give him one more year to see if they can get him back to the playoffs, and then sign Raquan. But I heard a report. If Lamar and the Ravens part ways, Saquon Barkley can be a target for us. That's what I heard. And then get a quarterback, and then that's what I heard.
The Ravens are slowly turning into the Lakers, where they're connected to every big name. And it's like, I mean, come on.
No,
we're connected to D-Hop this morning.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, Dylan, you read the report. Like, it's the Patriots and Ravens are the top two go-getters for D-Hop. So,
right.
But no, but that's what I heard. Like, but no.
Yeah, well, what next? They're gonna trade for Micah Parsons.
Yeah, we'll take him too, man. No, we'll get Mac Jones.
Rodgers is going to the Ravens now.
Hey, man, true. No,
look out! Odell Beckham's coming to the Ravens.
Oh my God! See, Jake. Kyle likes to troll people, so like, watch out for Kyle, man.
I like it. I think it's funny.
But he's gonna retire just so he can go play with the Ravens.
Oh my God, Dylan! Oh my God, bro. But yeah, but to answer your question, yeah, I see them tagging Daniel Jones and signing Barkley if that's the way they want to. Or that's where they should go.
Also you're going to get Terrell Owens too?
That's my quarterback.
See, Jordan, you opened yourself up for this one.
Dylan, I Seahawks, man. Come on, bro.
All right. Yeah.
Don't make me start making the Lamar Jackson to Seattle comments. I don't want to upset you more.
Well, we'll say that for the next segment where we talk about our teams. All right, so Dylan, same question. What choice would you make between Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley?
To be fair, I'll give Daniel Jones his props. It's tough. I don't want to give Daniel Jones that big quarterback franchise tag. That ain't pretty to smack on Daniel Jones. He ain't worth all that money, so I would probably say I would give that tag to Barkley and then try to see if I could work a 2-3 year deal out with Jones on something, give Barkley that tag and try to see if we can work something out in the regular season or something along those sorts. But you can't give Daniel Jones that price tag. You can't make him think he's worth that much to other people because he's not. If you give him that franchise tag, he's going to be in the 30 to 40 million range. And that's not Daniel Jones' price. I'm sorry. In my opinion, he's one of those $20 to $25 million quarterback ranges because, yes, he did have a good season. Yes, the Giants did make the playoffs, but that's the first time he's ever done that. And, they didn't have a good playoff performance in the second round. They definitely have a lot of holes they need to fill. So I don't think giving Daniel Jones that big of a tag is something they need to do. I think you do whatever you can to keep Barkley. That seems kind of like the big offense. Your only offensive star you really have there is Barkley. So I feel like the team loves him. The fans love him. I feel like you got to do whatever you can to give him a long-term extension. But if I had to tag one, I have to tag Barkley because I am not giving Daniel Jones that massive franchise tag at all.
Okay. Jake?
Yep. So I'm going to agree with Dylan. I don't want to give, the question just makes me uncomfortable in general because I don't want to give a long contract ideally to either player. Mm-hmm. And I don't, this is nothing against Saquon, but I have a fear of giving big contracts to running backs that have been in the league for a few years that have shown to be injury prone because it's such a poor return on investment if I want to get all fancy and economical. You're not going to get your money's worth if you give a big fat contract and you don't know what their body's going to hold up to, especially with someone that's had injury history. Now with Daniel Jones, I'll admit, even coming out of the draft, I was a Daniel Jones hater. Like I thought the Giants made a mistake drafting him. I've never been a fan of him in any sense, and I still don't love him. But I have to admit, he impressed me. There were moments where he looked really good. He looked really good against Minnesota. I have to say that goes more for coaching with Brian Daboll. Is just for me, if I had to vote, he's coach of the year. I can't give him $40 million or $35 million, whatever the franchise tag is going to be. That's so much money that has to go there. I would work out, try and get 2025 for 3 or 4 years, see what he can do, and then franchise Saquon. The real thing the Giants need to do is get help with the wide receiver room. Those wide receivers are trash, and we can't. Even though I don't love Daniel Jones, it's really hard to give him a fair shake when he doesn't have anybody good to throw to.
Yeah, it's like you can say Dayball's the reason that he made the playoffs this year, but it's like imagine what Dayball could do with Daniel Jones and weapons now. Like,
right,
let's
exactly.
put that at play.
With D-Hop or any of these other guys that are being rumored.
Daniel Jones and D-Hop, I'm not sure he would like that. I'm not sure D-Hop would be like, hey man, I've gotten bad quarterbacks. They just gave me Kyler Murray and that didn't work. I don't want Daniel Jones. Give me a good one. Give me a good one. Give me a Pro Bowl quarterback. Give me someone who's won something.
Sure, he wouldn't let him in to see what would happen. Give you the answer if Daniel Jones is a dude or not.
That's true.
I'm very intrigued by it. I don't hate it. I like when wide receiver ones go into another true wide receiver one spot. You definitely get his targets. You know, they had a good play from Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James. It's just they can't rely on getting that type of play out of those guys every week. They're not at that level yet. I'm not saying they can never be at that level, but right now they're not at that level yet. You know, you got some impressive play out of them, but that's because they stepped up when they had to. It's not stuff they can do every game. You know, Isaiah Hodgins had 2 touchdowns last against the Vikings. He had 1 target. Well, he had like 3 targets and 1 catch this game. So they definitely need more. They need some bigger targets out there, some bigger names.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think I'm one of those who would probably franchise tag
Saquon.
probably Daniel Jones.
Oh, you said Daniel
actually,
Jones.
No, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I had it backwards in my head. Saquon, I would franchise tag because running backs, I mean, always worry about them, and Daniel Jones, I feel like has earned at least a 2-3 year type of deal, where you make a commitment to him and make a commitment to building the team around him, because I think he and Daboll make a great pair, at least off of this year, and I'd like to see if Daboll could continue to develop Daniel Jones. But so we'll talk about the Eagles when we talk about Eagles-Niners. So let's look at the other side, Dallas and San Francisco. We all know those Cowboys. They came into this game real confident, thinking they were going to knock off the Niners, and they could put together 4 field goals for a 12-19 loss. So looking at Dallas, I feel like there's probably multiple questions to go with Dallas. So I'll start with Dylan on this one. Should they fire Mike McCarthy?
Man, it's really tough to say because I wouldn't say necessarily Mike McCarthy was a horrible coach this season. Dak was just bad. He didn't play the full season and he led the league. He tied the league in interceptions. And it's like he played great last week against, a Tampa Bay team that had a lot of questions, and they played them well and won the game. And then, they actually play a team like the 49ers who have a good defense, can actually press you a little bit, and Dak struggles again. So it's really hard to say, the Cowboys were winning without Dak. Not saying that, Cooper Rush is that guy, but, they were winning without Dak. So it's really hard to say what it really can bring in. I definitely do think, some of their decisions was very interesting, but also at the same time, I don't think it was all on McCarthy. Ezekiel Elliott hasn't been that running back like they thought they were. Pollard got injured, which wasn't great. You didn't like seeing that. He's especially with him being a free agent and having a season like he just did. He had some big money lined up. Ezekiel Elliott hasn't been good. I'll give the props to CeeDee Lamb for his 117 yards, almost all of Dak Prescott's yards right there. But other than that, like, man, they struggled. It's really hard to tell if that was the game plan or if Dak was making bad reads, wasn't looking at just progressions properly, because this team has won. They were 12-5 this season. They obviously did win games, but it's really tough to tell. I don't think McCarthy should be fired, because it's just one of those things that's so uncertain to really say, is it really his game plan is the problem, or is Dak just making the bad throws and it's making him look bad type of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of agree that McCarthy probably shouldn't be the scapegoat for all this, but we know how Jerry Jones is. Now, you did bring up Dak Prescott, so I'm going to go to you, Jordan, with this one.
Yeah.
Is Dak Prescott a franchise quarterback?
Man. I mean, they pay him that money to be a franchise quarterback, so I mean, he better be a franchise quarterback.
Exactly. Paid him.
Well, fine. I'll change the question this way. Do you think, yes, he's getting franchise quarterback money, but do you think that you could win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott?
I mean, they got a good defense. They got CD Lamb. I mean, on offense, but it's like, I know Dak went down with an injury, but what has he done? I mean, obviously he's got to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he hasn't really. He's kind of like Josh Allen, hasn't really done anything, and hasn't really advanced to that next round. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't know, man. Dallas. I mean, it's America's team, but it's like, it's
America's team to Dallas.
Yeah,
I haven't referred to them as America's team since the late 90s.
You heard a single person call Dallas America's team that isn't a Dallas fan?
I feel like his potential to be like that franchise quarterback, but he needs probably another weapon on offense, like to help CD Lamb out. Like, I know they got Michael Gallup. He's like, all right.
He's targeted 3 times, no catches.
So we've already talked about Ravens, Bills, and Cowboys. They need more help on the offensive side of the ball. I think losing Amari Cooper was a big issue, because Amari Cooper was a big target for Dak.
He was that route runner. CD's one of those guys who can streak out there and burn his man, do some good deep type stuff, and that Amari Cooper was that route runner who could go down the middle and get you those 30, 40 yards. CD Lamb isn't that type of receiver, and that's where they struggle. They're hoping Gallup could be that type of guy, and he just hasn't been. He's been struggling with injuries, connection issues between him and Prescott haven't been well. He just doesn't look like that guy. And I do agree with what Jordan said. When you look at that Cowboys offense, you look at it and it's like Pollard, Elliott, Gallup, because Gallup was looked at as being one of the having a second-year breakout with CD Lamb. You look at this roster and you're like, this could be good, and now it's just like, They could fare with some more weapons. And when you think a couple of years ago, then drafting CD Lamb was like somewhat of a luxury pick with the stuff that they had there.
Okay. So Jake, my question for you is, are Zeke Elliott's days of being a productive running back behind him?
Okay.
I would say so. I mean, Zeke's been in the league for like 6 or 7 years now. Yeah, that's a long time for a running back. That's a long time for a running back. That's a lot of hits you're going to take. And you have to compare
up on that last play.
Yeah. Yes. First of all, I still have yet to find anybody that's explained to me what the logic was on that last play, because I still don't understand what they were trying to do there. But that's neither here nor there. The other thing you have to consider with Ezekiel Elliott is, could he be a good running back? Could he give you good numbers? Sure. But is he worth the contract that he's getting paid to justify the numbers he's going to get you? Absolutely not. There's
not
no
26
way.
yards.
Nope. And Tony Pollard definitely is the better running back between the two. And it's a gut punch that he broke his leg. Like, that's heartbreaking. I don't like the Cowboys. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. Seeing that happen was bad. And Zeke, like, no, he's not going to be a productive running back. And if he does have productive games, it's not going to be consistent, and it's not going to be worth the paycheck that he's making.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned that last play. What I assumed they were looking for was, I guess, the throw to, who was that throw to? Was that to Wilson or Gallup?
Might have been Gallup. I can't remember though. Doesn't
I'm
matter.
assuming Gallup was supposed to catch it and then lateral it to Zeke, which if that was the case, I don't understand why he had to be the one to snap the ball anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got. When you say that now, it was kind of like they were supposed to throw like a quick ball and toss it back to Zeke. He was just gonna like rush up after being the center. They didn't expect him to get blown up the way he did. They probably expected him to like be able to block and then run up the gut and be ready for a lateral or something. But they didn't expect two defenders to just beat him up.
Either way, yeah, it definitely didn't make sense to me.
Nope.
But move ahead, NFC title game now. So we get the Eagles, we got the Niners, got 1 versus 2.
This is tough. I hate this. I hate picking this game.
So, I mean, we got to do the same thing we did for the AFC. So, picks as well as the key to the game, and we can start with Jordan on this one.
So
Eagles, Niners, who you got, and what's the key for the team to win?
So I'm definitely picking the Eagles. I think they have the better overall offense. That's gonna be it's hard because they got Debo on the one side for San Fran, and they got CMC. But it's gonna be close. But I feel like they both have good defenses. So I feel like to answer your earlier question, I think this might be the rivalry of the Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, because like Hurts versus. Well, I'm not sure who the quarterback is going to be, so never mind.
But you could say team wise. I could see that in a sense team wise. I could see the Eagles and 49ers playing each other for a while, no matter who the quarterback is.
Yeah, like they both have good offenses. They both have good defenses. I just feel like Hurts is compared to Purdy, or he's the more I wouldn't say experienced. He's had the better season. We all know like before he went down, he was the MVP front runner. So it's like
So Chase jumped in here. As long as y'all got the Chiefs winning, you can't go.
Chase. If that's Chase, I do have Chiefs and Eagles in the Super Bowl. I just don't see if Mahomes gets injured, even hurt more. Which I'm not even praying on him getting hurt. I think what if he gets hurt again and he's hobbled into the championship game? You know what I'm saying? I'll give the advantage to Eagles because Hurts has a shoulder too, but it's like he played a lot.
Well, I'll let you know, Chase. 3 out of the 4 of us have the Bengals beating Kansas City this weekend.
And Jordan's the one who has the Chiefs, so
I picked
Jordan's the only one who picked Kansas City.
If you're still hearing this, Chase, the only reason why I picked the Chiefs is because if the O-line can do a good job of protecting Mahomes all game, then they can win the game. But
that's fair.
So Chase is probably a fan of you out of the 4 of us.
Chad Henne,
it's up to me now.
Chad Henne, baby, the greatest quarterback to come out of.
Oh God!
See, Chase, I mean, come on, man, out of Michigan.
Come on, Chase, bro.
I forgot Chad Henne was still in the league when I was watching on Saturday. I was like, that dude's still playing.
Yeah, man. Every time Mahomes goes down with something and Henne has to take a snap or something, I'm like, wow, you've really made your career just being a backup. You're lucky your quarterback is so great and you don't have to come out there and actually play more than 3-4 drives of football.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so Jordan's going with the Eagles. Okay. Dylan, who you got and what's the key?
So I've been very back and forth on this one. The Eagles were a team that have been very interesting to me. I'm a big Jalen Hurts guy, obviously big Oklahoma fan. So Jalen Hurts is one of those quarterbacks I like watching in the league, as long with Kyler Murray and different things like that. So being the big OU guy fan I'm a big Jalen Hurts fan. I want to see him do good. I want to see him do well, and they've definitely quieted the doubters when they've been doubted. Every time the Eagles have struggled, or people are like, maybe they're not actually that good. The Eagles kind of shut the haters up, in this Giants game. People were like, the Giants could give them a run for their money. Last time we saw the Eagles, they weren't too hot. They had some struggles, here and there. The Giants could upset. And then the Eagles were like, actually, that's not possible. This is the playoffs. We're actually going to play. We're going to show you guys we're this team. And I think that's going to happen again. I'm picking Philadelphia. I think the 49ers are good. I'm not saying at the moment it's going to be too big for Brock Purdy, but the offense definitely did struggle in this game. The Eagles don't have a lackluster defense themselves. They actually have a pretty decent defense, especially when it comes to the pass. So I think the Eagles are going to get this one. I think it will be a closer game than people expect, or at least I want it to be a closer game. If the Eagles, beat the crap out of them and just go home and go to the Super Bowl, that's whatever. But I think it'll be a closer game than people expect. But I'm taking Philadelphia in this one. They have a great mentality. It seems like that Philadelphia team has a way better mentality under that Jalen Hurts regime than what they probably not even what they did, I guess, would say under Carson Wentz or anything else like that. But they have like a good Jalen Hurts has that good leadership role, and they all seem to follow that very well. And that always seemed like a Philadelphia culture thing. They just needed the right guy to lead them. When they had Carson Wentz there, they had Doug Peterson to lead that. And once Peterson left, they didn't really have that anymore. And now they have that under like Jalen Hurts and Sirianni. So I got the Eagles winning this one.
All right, Jake, who you got, and what's the keys?
So this is a tough one. I have like zero confidence in my pick. It feels like because
same here.
I could see this game being close for either team winning. I could see a blowout for either team winning. I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers. It's when you look at these two teams, I see that if you look at rosters top to bottom, these are the two best rosters in the National Football League. No offense to Cincinnati or Kansas City, but these are the two most complete teams. You look at San Francisco, they have all pros at wide receiver, at the offensive line, running back, and their defense is full of all pros and Pro Bowlers. The Philadelphia Eagles, I think, have 6 Pro Bowlers on offense, which is just like, how do you do that? How do you have 6 Pro Bowlers on offense? And their defense is great. The key for Philadelphia is their secondary. They have an absolutely fantastic secondary that the key for San Francisco winning is Brock Purdy. Are we going to have a bad Brock game where he costs the team the win? We saw him struggle against Dallas, and Dallas has a really good defense too. So it's not like he was going up against a bad team. We saw in the first half, Purdy didn't look great, but he kind of kept going, and eventually he got the Dallas defense to break down with the running game. Dallas's defense got very tired. They weren't making tackles, and things started to open up. That's going to be the key for San Francisco to win, is the O-line giving him enough time to protect, the wide receivers making enough plays, a lot of yard after catch kind of scenarios, and then the San Francisco defense, whatever game plan they do, they have to stick to it to try, and I think they should try and just take away the pass game and force for the run game, because Jalen Hurts, I think, is going to be too talented with just throwing the ball. A.J. Brown is just a stud. I think you really want to try to take away the big plays, force the run, trust your defense to make it. But this is going to be a low-scoring, ugly, mid-90s, mid-80s kind of football game where the final score is probably going to be like 17-14. And we're going to be watching it like, how were there so few points? But when the game's
teams
over,
are supposed to be way better.
Right. But when we're at the same time, we're like, man, that was a good football game. Like, we're not going to be disappointed because it's low scoring. But
it's going to be like one of those things where you're going to see Jalen Hurts go on like a game-winning drive with like 3 minutes, 2 minutes left, and then you're just kind of like, wow, that's just kind of how it happens.
Yep. But yeah, I'm going to pick the 49ers. But again, like Dylan said, like, this is really hard, and I'm not sold on it. But this is going to be a great game, and it's really going to be a testament to how good these rosters are and how well the coaching staff uses them to their strengths to try and attack any weaknesses on the other team.
I just feel
I'll give a shout out to Shanahan. He's been a really good second half adjuster with Brock Purdy. Purdy has struggled in both of their playoff games so far this season, and in the second half they came out with a way better game plan, and they figured things out, and he's been able to calm down and run the offense properly. So I'll give shout outs to whoever's talking to him. I don't want to give all the credit to Shanahan because it might not just be him. It could be coaches, players, but whoever's talking to him, telling him to calm down. We got this. Props to you, because he's definitely been.
Oh, Dylan.
Yeah, well, yeah, just paused for a second, but like I was saying, it said, like I was saying, but who's ever telling him about those second half adjustments, they're killing it. Yeah, he's definitely been struggling and figuring out in that second half.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna just say, off of Jake's point too, just if Jake picked the 49ers and see Kyle, you picked the Eagles, I wouldn't be mad at either pick because it can go either way. It's the way it's just stacked up. AJ Brown versus Deebo Samuel, or Devontae Smith versus Ayuk. I just think that the reason why, like I said earlier, in my take, that I of your original question, of just when I talked about Hurts is like we all know that he was probably like the MVP front runner, and the way he went down, now he lost that kind of opportunity. So he kind of has like a chip on his shoulder. So he probably wants to prove to the world that he's probably he should be the best QB or MVP. So he's gonna ball his heart out. I'm not saying Purdy might not or might. I'm saying that it's like, I mean, and me being an Alabama fan, like I give all my love to like Hurts because he's a good quarterback.
OU claimed him. You guys benched him.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna look once again. Unbiased fan. I'm going with Dylan here. I love Jalen Hurts, but he should be claimed by OU 100%.
You think? Well, he only played like a year, right there, or
it doesn't matter.
Where did
when he gets drafted? I guess when he did get drafted, they said quarterback out of Alabama and Oklahoma. So
no,
I guess
it's Oklahoma. I'm giving Dylan I'm giving Oklahoma the claim there.
Yeah,
Alabama didn't want him.
I mean, well, I kind of give his flowers for what he did for Alabama, but
of course. True freshman quarterback, you always got to give it to him.
Yeah, but I just kind of give the edge to Eagles because Hurts has that chip on his shoulder because he was like, damn, like I let that. I mean, even though my injury kind of like derailed me, like I should have got the MVP. So
he said MVP, scoff. I'll get a Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, so.
Right,
but I mean, either way, either pick you choose, it's like not a wrong pick because it can go either way. Like,
hey, and look, I'm just gonna say it. If you're rooting for the Eagles, it's a good thing if he doesn't win the MVP because the last MVP that won the Super Bowl the same year was Kurt Warner in '99. So just that MVP curse is real. So if that's what it takes, like, then I'm sure he'll take that over an MVP. I would.
Sean Alexander was that close.
He wasn't that close. That was a terrible game.
Hey man, I got a dream.
And I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, so I like the Seahawks. But there were so many things bad about that game, including the officiating. We could do a whole podcast on that, but that was bad.
All right, so before we get into the offseason stuff, I will say I have the Niners in this one because coming to the playoffs, I've had Bengals, Niners as my Super Bowl, so those are the two teams I'm riding with. And I think for the Niners, it's clearly going to be Brock Purdy. He's going to be the key to all of this. If he can play steady football, no turnovers or anything like that, I think that defense can keep them in the game long enough to where, like you guys had said, Purdy has had better second halves than first halves. And I kind of see the same thing happening here. But these two definitely are the best team in the NFC for sure. So I feel like either way, I'm going to enjoy this game. But so looking at our picks, I've got Bengals Niners. Jake has Bengals Niners. Dylan has Bengals Eagles. And Jordan's got Chiefs Eagles.
The only matchup we don't have is Chiefs 49ers. We don't want to see part 2.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, don't want to see that.
That is pretty interesting. So we'll see who turns out to be right next week. But now with the last
this week, right? This week.
I was talking about next week's show. We'll see who.
I'm about to say, did it get delayed again or whatever? It's like.
Well, actually, I did have one quick question. I mean, getting kind of long in the episode. I do want to do the off-season question at least. Yeah. So just really quickly, the league kicked around, conference championship games being neutral site because technically Buffalo played Kansas City. That would have happened. So Jake, you kind of already jumped the gun there. How many of you would have been for it? Jake said no. Dylan, would you have been for that?
No.
It's the whole purpose of having the
because it takes away
the whole purpose of being the best team. It takes away home
field advantage. Like no.
No, I get this situation. This situation's different, and I feel like the NFL there was no right way to make sure it's completely 100% fair, but they got as close as they could. But as far as moving forward, then no, because then the whole point of the one seed is not just the bye; it's you play at home, you control where it's played. Yeah. So if you're an indoor team, you want to play indoors. If you're Buffalo, you should build your team to play in the snow, which they struggled with. It would be terrible. I don't think there's a single fan that would want that.
Yeah, no, I'd be very against it. just to piggyback real fast, yeah, it's the whole purpose of being the number 1 overall seed. You know, you get home field advantage all throughout the playoffs. It's like, what's the whole point of being the 1 seed if you're going to end up having to play in the neutral site in the championship game? It's like, no, that's why the Super Bowl's at a neutral site, you know?
Yep. I definitely agree with that. All right, so I just wanted to ask that before we get to the off-season stuff. So last week we answered the question, what our teams did right and where they need the most help going into next season. And since Jake, you weren't here for that, I'll ask you that first before we get into our other questions. So for the Saints, what did they do right this year, and what's their biggest need going into next season?
Man, this was a rough year for the Saints. It's hard for me to be like, what did they do right? I felt like there was a lot of underperformance by a lot of the team. So I'll go into what they need. I think they need a change in the coaching staff. I don't like their offensive coordinator, Pete Carmichael. Dennis Allen as a head coach, I don't like. He's a great defensive coordinator, but I didn't want them to hire him last year when they did. So I think they need, and they're not going to. They're going to keep the same guys that they have. But if I was in charge, I would look at trying to get a better offensive-minded coach that can really kind of command the team.
I wonder what Sean Payton's doing.
Yeah, I would love to have Sean Payton come back, but he's looking at like that roster. No, I'm not going back to that. That's a steaming pile of garbage. I'm not going back there. I will say that the defense is still really good, and that's probably what they leaned on. They still have a really good defense. They did lose a lot of key players, especially in their secondary, and they still had a good defense. They saw a lot of progress from Chris Olave. I don't love how much the Saints gave up to get him, but the dude's a stud. He was absolutely fantastic and really good to watch. As far as for moving forward for next year, outside of the head coaching staff, I feel like they need a little bit of help in the secondary. Their linebacker core isn't the best, and then they need help in the running game if they want to keep the same coaching staff, because Kamara is really great. We don't know if he's going to be playing next year, if he's going to be suspended, but the Saints had a really weird strategy where they tried to do a power running game, but Kamara is not a power running back. He's some guy you want to use screens and get to the outside. So they need to get a running back that can help kind of ground and pound, move the chains that way, and then use Kamara out of the backfield and screens and whatnot. But yeah, it was a very disappointing season.
That Mark Ingram element.
Oh, I love Mark Ingram. Roll Tide because he won a Heisman. But forever, all I'm going to think of with Mark Ingram is him running out of bounds and letting the stupid Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady win. It's just, and it's not fair because he's had a great career and he's a great dude. But just running out of bounds there, it's too soon. It's too soon, Kyle.
Big trust, Lamar Ingram. Big trust. Yeah. Do you well, I have a question for you, Jake. So, like, since you're a Saints fan, like, do you want to see James Winston as your quarterback, or do you go another route like that? Or
no, I want to. My goal, what I would hope that could happen, is we trade Sean Payton. The Saints trade Sean Payton. They get a first round.
Sean Payton.
Yeah, you get a first round pick for Payton, and you use that to draft a quarterback. Yeah. Jameis Winston, I was never a huge fan of. I didn't love the idea when they brought him in to be a potential replacement for Drew Brees, but I did say my mentality with Winston was if he's going to be successful, Winston, it's going to be with Sean Payton. If Sean Payton can fix the issues that he had with the turnovers, and we kind of saw it last year until he got hurt, and with Payton gone, Winston can't succeed here, and Dalton's a good backup, but no, I think you have to go fresh, and I would love to have a draft for a quarterback, and if you have to tank to try and get there, then or rebuild, because you can't really tank in the NFL. If you have to rebuild, then go for it. But I don't love Winston. I don't love Dalton. I think you just have to kind of go through the draft. That's what I would do.
Okay. All right. So now that was the end to looking back at the previous season. So now we're looking into free agency for this week. And as I said last week, we'll look at the draft next week's episode. So the question, we'll start with Jordan, with you of the Ravens. Free agent wish list in terms of
you love the pick, like you love the pick on me. Why do I have to go first all the time, bro?
All I mean,
It's all good, bro. It's all good.
We got to hear, your front office.
I mean, y'all know
mindset.
my obvious answer off the bat.
Well, I'm just saying. So free agency in terms of a position or a player that you may know who might be a free agent that you would love for your team to sign. Now, you can't use Lamar for this because the second question is the free agent that you have that you most need to re-sign. I'm assuming Lamar Jackson's the answer to that question for you.
No, it's Kyle Bowler for that question.
So free agency.
Yeah.
What's the position, or if there's a player in mind that you would love to see the Ravens go out and get?
I think the perfect marriage for Lamar is D-Hop. That's a target that we could use. Like you always said, Kyle. Like the Ravens obviously use the 3 tight end set. They use a tight end, so Mark Andrews is good. But also we use receivers that can block, and Lamar likes those to throw in the middle of the field like slant routes. So I mean, D-Hop came out and said that, hey, I can block. I can be a blocking receiver, but when I make the catch, I'm gonna still make plays out, after run after catch. So, I mean, that's a player that I would want. I mean, I know he's kind of missed the first half of the season due to the whole PED thing that he had. So he missed half the season. But I mean, I know he's a player who can go get it. If we can get him on a deal that we had Anquan Bolden on, I'd take it. That's kind of a steal. So I know your team and my team are the front runners to get him. So it's not like I'm making this Ravens whole potential landing spot up. I mean, that's the betting odds of him landing. We'll see what teams come in the fold later on in the offseason. But I mean, yeah, that'd be a perfect piece we can use. And obviously getting it off the coordinator too to fit, that I know that spot is vacant right now. So that's another factor in it of getting a receiver. So I'm going D-Hop for a player that I would love to have on the team. And I would have never thought I would say that because Kyler Murray and I thought that would have worked out in Arizona with Kyler but all that with Cliff and everything. It's they didn't work out. So I'm crazy. I'm shocked in saying this, but because I thought D-Hop would be in Houston, but yeah, D-Hop is my target.
All right, excellent. Take that off the screen now. All right, so and like I said, the free agent you most need to re-sign. I'm assuming you're going Lamar there.
Yeah. I mean, I know the Ravens. I mean, they had their press conference. They say what the media wants them to hear. I mean, Harbaugh said he's 200% wants to bring him back. I mean, I believe that Lamar. See, I mean, I don't know Lamar like that. I know I don't. He's not I don't have the number or anything, but I know that he is a team player. He wants to make sure the team is good. The money will come, but he's a team, player first. And I think that, I think that's big that Harbaugh has put him in the offensive coach, to help him out with that coach. That's a good sign that, Ravens want to keep him. But we'll see. But Lamar is a team first kind of guy. He's not really, I mean, obviously he wants top dollar, but at the end of the day, it's all about, what he wants for the team and how he can help the team improve. And he knows that he's been out. He's been hurt 2 years in a row. So he has a chip on his shoulder coming into the season too. So again,
Okay.
I believe that they'll get the deal done. I do want him to get it done earlier. So if they sign Burrows before Lamar, so I want them to get the deal done before, probably maybe before the draft or maybe a little bit after the draft. I don't see them waiting out this long if they want to sign him. So
it ain't happening until July.
I hope not, man.
I feel like you might get ready for
it's not gonna be pretty. It's not gonna be pretty.
Yeah, no, he ain't getting signed until July.
Well, the franchise tag
or whatever his deadline is.
Or franchise tag what? Deadline in February, April, or something like that.
Who says he'll sign it, bro?
Exactly.
He has to
He,
sign.
he could easily say like, "No, man, I'm not doing that." That's the fear. Is that if Baltimore's like, "We're going to franchise tag you," does that
Right.
burn the bridge more between Lamar and the front office? It's
Trade
going to
me
be
if you want to
ugly.
tag me.
It's going to be ugly. It's going to give us a lot to talk about, a lot of content to talk about.
Yes, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna be. Lamar cut contract season. Now it's time to get down to business. And like Jake said, it's gonna be dirty, it's gonna be messy. But at the end of the day, I think we're gonna come out of this and have a deal done. So it's gonna take a long time, but I feel like it's gonna get done. There's gonna be some negotiation on his side, on Baltimore's side, and then they're got to come to a neutral decision. So somehow.
Okay. We'll see when we get that first tweet from Schefter, like, oh, both sides are far apart. So I'm just warning you. But that's for another day.
I'll cry rivers, man. That's like I'm not gonna cry.
Get some tissues, man. It ain't gonna be pretty.
now, like before y'all answer your like, if Lamar goes right, worst case scenario, what quarterback? Well, I guess it depends on the offensive coordinator. But what quarterback do y'all see comes to the Ravens? Do you see us getting a quarterback in the draft?
It depends on what compensation.
What about Baltimore
get,
trading Lamar for Justin Fields? Yeah,
that's interesting. I do like
Justin
that.
Fields.
It depends on what compensation you get.
He can run.
Yeah.
Go
Depends
ahead.
on what compensation you get. If you trade with a team like Indianapolis, which I don't imagine that would happen, I imagine you would probably be more per se like an NFC team. Hence, like what Green Bay said about Aaron Rodgers, they prefer to probably trade him to an AFC team if possible. I imagine the same will go to the NFC with Lamar Jackson. It really depends. If you get some higher picks up in there, if like you get that 7th from Carolina, you can get a Will Levis. You can make some trades with the extra picks and stuff you get to get like a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young, but it shouldn't be anybody that's not in the draft or next year's draft. You shouldn't try to think throwing an aging veteran quarterback and building your whole offense around him should be the answer. It should be someone in the draft.
I just think that with the Ravens having. Maybe if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but have y'all ever heard of maybe there has been a coach that has put their star quarterback, in the talks of a new offensive coordinator. And to me, that's a good sign, saying that, Lamar has a say in who he wants. Mm-hmm. And I think they signed Lamar Jackson's cousin, so I don't know if that's.
It's still going to be about what number gets split across the table. From Harbaugh.
Jets would sign Lamar Jackson's cousins if that's what it took to get Lamar Jackson.
Sign Lamar's mom tomorrow. If he doesn't like the number, he'll be like, "Hey, mom,
we're going to the Jets."
In Baltimore."
Yeah, it's all about money, and it's all about the guaranteed money. That's what it is.
Right. I think the contract is not the issue. Like you said, it's just a guaranteed. How much he wants.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's gonna get messy. So
yeah, but let's give Dylan. His moment to talk about his Seahawks. Dylan, the free agent, was position or player that you want them to go after in free agency, and what current free agent on the team do they that you would want them to re-sign?
So I'll start off with a free agent to re-sign. We really don't have a lot that we need to re-sign. I mean, it's always good when you don't really have a lot of players on your team that are like you would hate losing. Geno Smith is obviously the big one. The question, I mean, it's obviously seeming like we're going to re-sign him. The length of the deal is unknown. How long it's going to be, the money is all very unknown. With that being said, Geno is probably a quarterback I would be fine keeping with a little bit. I've had my opinions on Geno. I don't think he is the long-term answer there. I don't think he is the answer for the next 3 years. But for the time being, until we figure out who is going to be that next guy under the helm, Geno Smith is definitely a really good player to keep in that system. Obviously, he made the playoffs with Seattle. So I think Geno is obviously our big signing. We have players like Puna Ford, who's been off and on the defensive end. He's an okay defensive line. I wouldn't hate re-signing him. He's someone that knows our defensive scheme for obviously a while now. So signing him back is not anything I'll be upset with. And then another big name, I guess you have Rashad Penny. spent a first round pick on him. Obviously has not been the running back that we hoped he has. Definitely has shown flashes last season. He went on a massive tear at the end of the season. He was the best running back in fantasy for like the last, I think it was like 8 weeks, they said. He was going crazy when he played for him. And then started off slow with Seattle this year, had a couple of good games, was starting to seem like he was going to heat up, and then got injured again for the season. So it's a very interesting situation. We have Kenneth Walker now. We had DJ Dallas, who's kind of had a resurgence in his career. I'd say that second half of the season, he played a lot better, a lot better than what Seattle fans have seen him play. So it's going to be a big question mark if he wants a lot of money with him having that first round tag tenure and, his recent success before he got injured. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. He's also a player I wouldn't hate that we resigned, but also if we got rid of him, I wouldn't be upset. If we go to players I want to sign, that's tough. I think we do need a lot of help in the linebacker area. Jordan Brooks is probably not going to be playing for us for the start of the season. I believe it was ACL or Achilles to end the season, so that's not something that's good. I haven't heard any reports about him being back and ready for camp. So when you look at Seattle's linebacker depth outside of Uchenna and Wosu, they're pretty weak there. We play Nick Ballore, who's half fullback half the time for us to play linebacker when we have to. So we had big play out of Cody Barton, but I don't think he's the answer. I would like someone like Deion Jones. I know that kind of seems like a massive stretch to get. He would want a lot of money, but Seattle has about north of $30-40 million in cap, probably a little less after the Geno deal. I'd like someone like a Deion Jones, some good inside linebackers to take over. Also, maybe another cornerback to help on our secondary. Seattle doesn't have the greatest secondary. Tariq Woolen, Pro Bowler. I love the pick. When we drafted him. He was exceptional. And then you have our second to third cornerbacks is a little questionable. So maybe getting another guy in there might be a little interesting. I like Devin Bush, out of Pittsburgh, another inside linebacker that would be young and, kind of fit a good Pete Carroll system. Just different linebackers. I'm trying to think of other edges and outside linebackers that are in there, but I think Seattle with that 5th overall pick, if they don't go quarterback, which I'm going to save who I think I want them to get until next week's episode with that 5th pick. But if they don't go quarterback with that 5th pick, I imagine they'll probably go defensive line. I think Jalen Carter is a big pick I like there. They have a chance to be able to get Will Anderson, who would be a massive boost on that Seattle defense. So it really depends on where they go with the draft. Free agency is obviously going to take play first, and whatever they don't do in free agency is probably the direction they'll go in the draft. It's going to be interesting. I definitely think the defensive side is where we need most help. Our offensive line has played a lot better, especially with, Charles Cross being a rookie and playing really well, Damian Lewis being a second year and playing really well, and then some of our other offensive line pieces slowly filling out. I wouldn't mind maybe a center. Austin Blythe is a little bit older, so seeing what we could do in that market, maybe look at the draft, and I wouldn't be upset spending a second, third round pick, getting a good O-lineman or a good couple O-linemen. That seems like Seattle's allergic to O-linemen when it comes to the draft. They rarely do it, but definitely just defensive help would be my biggest key. I like how our offensive looked. I think a lot of our offensive problems relied on Geno this season because I don't think he has any sort of clutch in him at all. That's my biggest problem with Geno Smith. So we'll see. But if I had to pick anything, defensive line, and then I'd love to have Deion Jones on that team.
Okay. All right. So Jake, your Saints free agent position or player that you would love to see him get, and free agent that you need to re-sign.
So it's no secret that the Saints been in salary cap purgatory for it feels like the better part of a decade, and they just keep finding ways to kick the can down the road. So they're very limited on what they can do in free agency. And honestly, at this point, I'm kind of fine with them just eating the dead cap money and just be like, okay, we have to pay, we have to deal with it, and we're just going to pay for it. So I don't have a ton. I think this year needs to be focused more on rebuilding and trying to potentially get some draft capital. But for players to go for, Puna Ford, Dylan, I'm going to be stealing some of your guys. Penny, I think, would be a great running back to complement Kamara, especially if Kamara has any potential of being suspended. I think he would be great. Puna Ford could really help out the defense. Those are the two guys that I think, like, Seattle doesn't need Penny and Walker. Like, I know you want to have some some backups to go in there in case someone gets hurt, like Penny did. But you have other needs on that team, and you could find a good backup running back for a lot cheaper than what you pay for Penny.
I don't imagine we'll re-sign Penny. I think we'll give him his walking papers if we can come to terms to like a cheap deal. If we can get him for cheap, we'll keep him.
Absolutely, but he probably can get more, and I'd love to see him in the Saints uniform. As far as for position of people to keep, let me add this in. Other positions that the Saints really need help at, I think they need help with the guard and the cornerback are two positions they could try and get in free agency. Obviously, they need a quarterback. They're not going to be able to get a good quarterback unless they get some more draft capital from Sean Payton trade or maybe some other trades that they can do. Those are the two positions I think they need. As far as for the current roster, there's not a ton of people that are going to be potential free agents that I'm really hurting to see. I do like Marcus Davenport, our D lineman. I think he's really good. You need to keep him. And then their cornerback, PJ Washington, he's not great, but he's good enough. And you can't just keep turning your cornerbacks over year after year. The Saints have really lost a lot of their really good members of their secondary. Gardner Johnson went to Philly. Williams went to Baltimore. You have to keep some of your guys there. Those are the guys that I would keep. But honestly, if the Saints just need to bite the bullet and start their rebuild now, and I think it's looming more likely that they will go that route.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll go ahead with my Patriots on this one. So I think the free agent for them to re-sign, I would love to see Jacoby Myers back with them, especially now that we know Bill O'Brien's going to be the offensive coordinator. I know a lot of people look at wide receiver as a big need for them. I think Aguilar will probably walk. I feel like his time with New England's probably done. But I wouldn't be mad going into next season with Myers, Parker, Thornton, and Bourne as my top four.
Maybe a potential receiver you draft,
Right. Which, tease for next week. But I definitely go with Myers. And I think Jonathan Jones as well as a sneaky key free agent that they probably need to re-sign. Because
is Isaiah Wynn a free agent? I wasn't sure if he was.
I think he might be, but I think with him, I feel like his tenure in New England hasn't been too good. So I wouldn't be surprised if they moved on from him. And I mean, that might be somewhere I go with the draft, but I think I think Brown is there next year, but it might be like an option type thing. I can't remember, but I'm looking at Jacoby Myers, Jonathan Jones as the free agents to re-sign. Wish list, I would probably go, I think secondary, because Devin McCourty probably retires, and he was so good at the safety position. We have Duggar, we got Adrian Phillips, but they kind of play the same way, whereas McCourty was your kind of over-the-top guy, and I think they probably could maybe get one of those in free agency. Also, offensive line. I'll take offensive line anywhere outside of probably, I like Onwenu. I like Andrews, who's been the rock at center. But the tackles, I think they could upgrade in free agency. So that's probably where I would go as the wish list for them. That's kind of it. I mean, punting was terrible, but I mean, we don't really need to talk about punters.
Yeah, it's you don't got a list of punters. You're picking and choosing like, hey, we need this guy.
Right. So that'd be my biggest need for the Patriots for sure. But
I like Adrian Amos to the Patriots. If he decides, hey, Green Bay ain't in it for me, I think he'd be a nice free safety addition there.
I would definitely take that because, like I said, McCourty would leave a big. I mean, he hasn't announced retirement or anything like that. I just feel like
he's getting older. If the team's not in a championship window, why leave them? And also, why play if you're not going to be a champ?
Yeah, and he's also said if Brady went back there, then he would play. So he's kind of making it seem like he's planning on retiring. I mean, his brother retired last year.
He's thinking about it.
Once you're thinking about it, I mean, you got one foot out the door anyway. So yeah. I'm assuming he's going to retire.
It might be one of those things too, where he's like, if he doesn't retire this season, he'll let us know that this is probably his last season type thing. Hey, I'm going to try to do it one more time, one more season, going to see what we can do, see if we can run it back, type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll also say this: I'm definitely a Mac Jones guy, and I really want to see he and Bill O'Brien how that can work. Because
Can't be
Exactly.
any worse.
It's good that they got a guy
that
that's been surrounded around that Alabama culture just fairly recently and can kind of go in there and connect with Mac Jones a little bit. If like
Yep.
Mac Jones would have been like, hey, how's your time there? And just different things like that, that make him more comfortable than kind of what New England had with like, hey, we don't really know who's your OC. Have fun, with Bill O'Brien. He's someone who's already relatable, someone who's been in that position, someone who knows what they're doing. Give that dude some weapons. Give Mac Jones some weapons. Hunter Henry, have a better year. Johnny Smith, have a better year. Give him a couple other receivers to mix in there and see what he can do.
Right. And I think with Bill O'Brien, we'll probably see better years out of Henry and Smith for sure. But
hopefully you pay him, man. That was
mean,
wild. That free agency was wild. The Patriots had money and they spent it.
They did, and it was weird. We're not used to seeing Belichick go crazy like that. But
especially, man, I was like, man, they got I think they signed Johnny Smith first. I was like, man, they got Johnny Smith. That's a nice signing. And then it was like, oh, they also got Hunter Henry. And I was like, huh?
Yeah.
What are we doing here, New England? And then didn't you draft like 2 tight ends that year too?
Yeah.
I think so.
We don't need to talk about them. Devin Asiasi. Yes, I know all about them. Well, Keen, I don't even know where he is. And I think Asiasi went to the...
I think he's on the Bengals now. I think he went to the Packers, and then now he's on the Bengals.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So I guess he lucked out. But I think that's kind of a good point to end the episode. A little over 2 hours. But I do want to say, Jake, for your first episode, definitely been a great one. Love having you on, and think you're a great addition to the show for sure.
Thanks for having me. It's been an absolute blast, and I'm looking forward to next week. It was great.
Yeah. All right, so then, like I said, next week with our off-season stuff, we're going to be focusing on the draft needs for our teams.
So man, I might need to talk for that, man. I'm not. Really,
you got a week. You got a week of time, so see what pick you got.
I think we're 22nd right now.
Do some research on what you could get around that 22nd rate. Read up some mock drafts.
Yeah, that website.
Are there any websites for like mock drafts?
Yeah, you can just look up tons of them. You can. I'll send you a website to make them, and then you can just look up mock drafts. And there will be tons of them.
All right, cool.
Yeah. We got you. Because I've been having a lot of fun messing with mock drafts. It's a good way to kill a few hours.
Draft time is my favorite holiday, and I'm glad the draft's in Kansas City. Like literally, 2-3 hours away from me this year. Can't wait.
Are you going?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Definitely going.
Very cool.
How does that work? Do you get tickets, or how do you?
Basically, yeah, you can get. So a lot of the stuff is free. A lot of the crowd stuff is free, but you can get tickets to sit in the specific fan areas. And I'm planning on trying to get ones for the Seattle one area.
Oh, okay.
Very cool.
Here comes Chase with Dylan knows.
Exactly. We're gonna have some Sports Empire members that are all gonna be around there. I know Ty's gonna be close to that area too, so it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, all right. So, any final thoughts from any before we get out of here?
No, man. That's my bad for coming in late. I had an interview with a player, but yeah, man, it's a good show, man. Really good show. Like Kyle said, Jake, for your first show, you killed it, man. Cool. Very Fred did a good job with putting this team together, the show together. Yeah, just keep on putting in the good work. I'll do my mock draft for next week. I'll make sure I get on top of that. But other than that, man, everyone stay safe. And then we'll have a good week of football coming our way. So we'll have a lot to talk about next Tuesday. So.
Yep, absolutely. Dylan, you got anything?
Outside of have a good conference championship week. Basketball, football. Hopefully we get some bigger news. Well, hopefully get some bigger news out of basketball. Maybe we get another trade sprinkled in there. We got a little tease with the Rui Hachimura trade, but give me more. Give me some bigger names, better names. But outside of that, I mean, had a UFC pay-per-view this weekend, the first one of the year. It was a pretty exciting event. Got 2 new champs. Excited about that. Excited where it's going. So outside of that, I mean, yeah, I hope piggyback what off Jordan said. I hope everyone's safe. Be safe, have a good time, enjoy the championship weekends. If you're a fan of the teams or not, it's going to be good football.
Yes. And Jake, you got any final thoughts?
Nope. Just, everyone obviously stay safe. Enjoy the football. This is, we only have 3 games left for the whole year. So enjoy it. And again, I really appreciate being on here, and I look forward to next week.
All right. So,
For sure,
for on behalf of Jake, Dylan, Jordan, and myself, I agree with you guys. Everybody be safe. Enjoy your loved ones, enjoy the football, enjoy all of that. Just keep it happy and positive. That's all I gotta say. So, and also, shout out to the chat with Chase coming in late, holding down kind of the second half of the show. We had Gregory, who's the resident 5th member of the show. Love when he pops up in the chat. My boy Ryan stopping by, Freddie, Dante, really appreciate that. And anyone else who may have tuned in, may not have dropped a comment, but make sure hit the subscribe button, because Sports Empire Network's got a lot of great shows going on, a lot of great people. You just met Jake, so there's others on here as well. So make sure you stick by, because there's a lot of big things coming, new shows, new people that you'll see. So you definitely don't want to miss any of that. But yeah, it's another Big 3 episode in the book. And until next Tuesday, make sure 7 o'clock you guys are back here. We've got another great show lined up for you. And I guess that's it. We are out. All right. Good night.
All right.